Seeing as that it is 6:30, the 4 members of the Select Board are present, along with the Town Manager, Michael Units. We will call the meeting to order. As we are virtual, we will bypass the Pledge of Allegiance and do a roll call. Michael? Lost Renee.
Oh, I'm here. I didn't hear you, Jeff.
Well,
I just had to grab a sweatshirt. I'm here.
Brad?
I'm here.
I am here as well. I'm going to ask the audience to mute their Zoom call if they are not actively speaking. And Mike, maybe you can go through and just do a global mute, and we can unmute as necessary. All right. We will start with appointments, resignations, and retirements. Michael, I know you said you are on the Cape. Are you able to read, or do you need one of us to do it?
If you could read it, I'd appreciate it. I'm actually just coming off the water.
All right, so we have an appointment of Kevin K. Schleicher Jr. to the position of full-time civil service police sergeant. Mr. Units? Do we not have Mike?
I was muted. Kevin Schleicher, as you know, has been with the department for a number of years now, and the chief has recommended that Kevin be appointed as a sergeant, and it's necessary due to the retirement of Sergeant Whitfield. He's selected from an active civil service list, and he's 10 years full-time experience and was a special police officer. He has a master's degree in criminal justice, and he's active in the community. And I don't know if Chief Clark is on.
Yes, sir. You got it all right. This isn't a new position or anything. It just backfills the behind.
Great. Notice of appointment and any discussion that's necessary. I hereby notify the Select Board that, in accordance with provisions of Article 4, Section 2B of the Norton Charter, acting in my capacity as appointing authority, I have appointed the following individual as a full-time civil service police sergeant: Kevin K. Schleicher Jr. That appointment was made on April 21st, 2020, in accordance with provisions of the Norton Charter, and will be effective August 5, 2020, unless the Select Board votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to that date. However, I specifically request the Board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of September 6, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the appointment of Officer Schleicher to Sergeant Schleicher?
No, but Jack, I just saw him join and just wanted to congratulate him. I think this is an excellent opportunity, and looking forward to him serving in this role.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks to the chief as well.
Congratulations, Sergeant. We'll go to the vote. Michael?
An enthusiastic yes. Congratulations.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yeah.
I vote yes. Congratulations, Sergeant Schleicher.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congrats, Kevin.
Very good. That closes out the appointments, licenses, and permits. We have a vote to approve the one-day beer and wine license to Dean Phelps Blair for a private event at the Everett Leonard Park from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on August 8th, 2020. It appears that all that application has been fully signed off by the relevant bodies. We have a motion.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And 2 vote yes. We also have another one-day all alcohol liquor license to Stephen Cavanaugh for a private event at the Everett Leonard Park from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on August 16th, 2020. Again, that appears to be fully signed off by the required parties. Have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we have to, I know that we have approved a few of these before and we just kind of added a caveat of as long as they meet the state standards and as they change and so forth. Do we have to add that into any of these? Of the population of people that are in attendance or anything? I know that we've done that in the last 2 or so that we approved previous meetings.
Michael, I know that we looked up the, whether or not there was a guideline on people attending, given it was outdoors, and these, I don't know that you can see it, but the first one is 50 to 60 people, and then the other one is 60, so it's well within the requirements, but we can certainly amend that to, what's the date on this one?
August 16th.
So it's about 3 weeks away. We can certainly amend that these are approved based on meeting the requirements set forth by the state or the town.
I would entertain that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion seems to be over. Go to the vote. Michael?
Yes, with the amendment.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I 2 vote yes with the amendment. I do not see any announcements in the packet tonight. With minutes, is there anything that we're missing? No, we're good. Okay. We are move ahead to the joint meeting with the school committee regarding town hall senior center project and the athletic complex. I've seen a number of those folks online.
Beth, it's Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. So, for purposes, I would like to call to order, for purposes of a joint meeting with the select board, our school committee meeting, just for the record. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Units, anything to start us off with here? You're muted again, Mike.
I provided you with information from our bond counsel on what a debt exclusion would add to $100,000, every $100,000 of value on a home. I'm not sure if the architect, Michael DeVeros, is on tonight. He was going to try to make it, just in case you had any questions about the locations for the town hall and senior center.
He's here.
Okay.
Mike, if I can ask first, I'm looking at what we were provided with the bonds, and it looks like the cost is it 33 million that we had them estimate?
We did, yes.
Okay, and that includes all 3 projects?
That is just the town hall and senior center.
Sorry, what were the final locations that were chosen?
The locations, 7 Main Street, purchase property next door, for the town hall and
Mike, I'm
senior
sorry.
center. Yep.
Mike, you're getting cut out by somebody who's not muted. There's an iPhone on here that's not muted. Can you find them and mute them?
Hopefully I picked the right one.
It looks like you did. Thank you.
So the 4 locations, number 1 was 4 and 4A. So that would put the town hall and senior center both at 70 East Main Street with the purchase of the property next door to the town hall. A second option was 116, 120 Mansfield Ave for the senior center, and the town hall would still be at 70 East Main Street. Another option was on Reservoir Street, a piece of property that's currently owned by Wheaton College, and that would be, there was an option there for both buildings to go there. And then another option was to build the town hall at 70 East Main Street and the senior center at 215 and 233 West Main Street. That is where the playground is, down next to the playground. And Diane,
So,
me if I was wrong.
so essentially it's just going to be a municipal complex where the current town offices are in that general area.
So we have not voted on that yet, Dan?
Okay, I'm sorry, the proposed site. then.
That,
Okay.
or also there's a proposed site on Reservoir Street also, on the property owned by Wheaton College.
Okay, thank you.
That's option number 3 on the screen that's showing.
So, and Mike, if I may ask, looking at this, what is the average house assessment for the town?
Maybe Dinah remembers, I think it was 314, if I'm not mistaken.
It's between 312 and 315, so 314 splits it, so.
Okay. Just doing some quick math here. And to clarify, I believe you said this is just for town hall and the senior center. This does not take into account the proposed athletic complex either. So perhaps we can ask the school committee to share any updates that they may have on that, so we can include that.
Dr. Valletta, would you like to do that?
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. The school committee, via the athletic complex committee, chose option G going back to this past spring. That was a 8-lane track and synthetic turf field construction for synthetic turf, multiple use field, softball, baseball field in the back of the yell. The synthetic, what's called a pitch field, off to the left as you're looking at the yell in the back, and then the tennis courts construction. And that was at a cost of $8,667,499. This committee did discuss in open session this past Monday prior to this meeting the idea of having further discussions depending on how the Board of Selectmen is moving forward. So I guess the intent in that particular case would be to look at what this project would add to the 2 other projects if and when borrowing. And then from there, what changes the potential school committee would be wanting to make to this project in order to make it potentially more feasible.
Thank you, Dr. Valletta. I apologize, I meant to. Did you say the value of option G?
Yeah, option G is $8,667,499. I can break it down For your further, the high school itself is 2.8 million. The synthetic behind the Yale School is 4.4 million. That's the biggest chunk of this project. It's got the most work. The synthetic turf pitch field in the back is just under 1.1 million, and the tennis courts come in at about 342,000. So approximately 8.667499.
Any questions from the board?
So Jack, well, a question, I guess, but more a comment. Mike, can we get get some updated figures based on, so I'm just looking at the sheet, like the second option is 34.5 million. Can we use that option to look at what the debt exclusion would be and adding in the 8.7 million for the athletics so we can see total what the projects would cost?
Yeah, we can run that.
Okay. Thank
Renee, not to be exact, but the fourth sheet that they ran for the payouts annually was for 10 million. And so you can get a ballpark that I think the 10 million was a 30-year bond was 27.52 per 100,000. So you figure it's probably going to be about $25 per 100,000. Just doing a quick math in my head.
I can't see that sheet that clearly. What on, Brad?
The fourth sheet.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And it says it's for $10,000 on 30-year bonds. And if you look over to the first year, which is the highest, and it descends down to $12.99. So figuring if that was for 10 million and we're talking almost 9, it'd probably be around 25 per 100,000. I mean, it's not exact, but it gives you an idea.
Yes.
That's a great point, Brad. Thank you. So that if we carry that out based on the $315,000 average assessment, that would be 78.75 roughly added on.
Correct.
We
What do you mean,
apologize.
78,
Renee,
75? I do see, I just saw it on there, Dinah, the 34 million?
Yeah.
It's on the second sheet, yeah. So
It's
that
on
one
the second.
has,
Yeah.
that one has it at, starts out with $116 per 100,000. And then adding in, Brad, what was that number that you said? 34?
I submit probably around $75. I'm $25 per 100,000 for the fields, because it's 27.52 for $100,000. I mean for 10,000. I'm sorry. I'm misplacing my decimal points here.
No, that's okay. I mean, it should be somewhere around 141.80, right? At least that's my fast math. I guess, Mike, if we can still get this officially. So
Yeah,
we have
what I'll do is I'll have her work it on a 20-year and a 30-year, because that one you were just looking at was only on a 20-year bond. So
Right.
have it go both
Right.
ways.
We have all different lengths.
Yep.
Okay.
And we apologize, Renee, on aging, we weren't aware that you wanted to put the school in there, we would have had it for you.
I'm sorry, Donnie, you cut it out. I didn't hear what you said.
I said, I'm sorry, at the last meeting, you had requested the numbers be run for the Town Hall Council on Aging. And we didn't think that far ahead to add the school in, so.
No, that's okay. I mean, this
we
gives us,
apologize.
no need to apologize. I mean, this gives us a good estimate, and then to Mike's point, it'll be nice to see it over 20 and 30 year, but this way we look at, what's the max that the projects can cost together, and then we go from there.
Right, no, I understand that.
So I appreciate that, thank you.
Dr. Bayetta, are you able to share some of the rationale for some folks who may not be fully up to speed on the athletic complex and some of the thought process and time behind it? From my understanding, this has been going on for planning for several years at least.
Yeah, this is year 4. We just started year 4 of looking at this project. 2 years ago, it was moved into a capital expense for the purposes of studying. We hired a Gale Associates via an article through the Capitol up to spend up to $20,000 to take a look at the design of what this would look like. Major concerns are lighting, resurfacing, drainage, utilization of water, and then in the back of the Yale School, literally practice fields right now, predominantly in some baseball fields and soccer fields that are in just dire straits. Prior to my coming here, it's my understanding that that was used literally to move old trees and so on and so forth. So the divots of all of that settling in and rotting out is in pretty significant shape. I don't know if anybody's walked it in a while. We went through that process of trying to figure out the costs. As you know, the bleachers at the high school are in good shape, but when it comes to everything else, we have to start thinking about expending some money. It happens that the field is in decent shape right now, simply because we've been off of it since November. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to drainage and all of that, it's problematic for us. In terms of home games and all of that, it's a problem for us in tournaments. We can't run it into the state track meets here because it's only a 6-lane. And then when you look at the whole overall issues, the recommendation that came back was to really take a look at this as either a project, the 8.6, which there were other examples that was higher, or to actually look at this project as chunks. In other words, doing a certain part of the project at one point and then looking at other potential projects later on. An example of that could be that the project could become $7.3 million if you only went for the 8-lane track football field and then everything behind the yellow except for the pitch field and the tennis courts. If you've been over to the tennis courts that are currently at the middle school, those are actually put up above the leaching field for that building. So what's happening is during the frost season, where everything kind of pops out and then everything settles back in. So the tennis courts are 100% cracked in certain areas, and so that's becoming concerning because the cracks are just getting bigger to the point where they're in some places 3 to 4 inches. And not feasible for even our own tennis courts to be played over time. Not necessarily today, but over the next couple of years, it's going to be problematic. Putting a new tennis court on top of the leaching field is probably not going to be the next best idea for us to do. So we moved it into this project by putting it out by the high school. The process is also included that we've tried to shift we had A through G. We went with G. There was a double F, F1 and F2. So we looked at many different potentials of making sure that watershed areas and conservation were as much not in play as possible. Taking a look at long-term, how can we utilize these fields to make money? These fields take a lot less money to utilize in terms of labor. I don't have to cut them on a regular basis and all of that stuff and line them. They become basically lined and they stay lined and you refresh them as needed. So there's the potential for us to also, through the school committee, to either set up what other communities have done, which is basically a user fee for non-residents, i.e. some type of a club that wants to have its tournament. The whole field, by the way, is lit on both sides, the football field and the other side is part of this project. So what could happen is the school committee could move that into its own stabilization account, if you will, just for the revolving account for the purposes of just putting the money back into the field or offsetting the cost of things like user fees for student athletes that would be predominantly using it. The idea is that it's a community field. The idea is not to be charging our community teams to utilize fields. We're also looking at them to be potentially fed through solar. One of the ideas that we brought up through the potential train project, which is the TRANE, which is that whole utilizing your funds within your expenses for things like electricity and utilizing those funds to offset the cost of actually putting up solar panels in order to have long-term less electrical costs as one idea. So we're looking at that as part of this project as well, instead of just your traditional lighting, and then all being able to even have that offset other projects, i.e. solar panels into the parking lots at our schools.
Hey, Joe, initially, you had talked about and this was surrounding, I believe, the maintenance of the complex afterwards. Can you talk about what, like, not only, I mean, I know you just mentioned now getting the fees, but are there potential opportunities to reduce some of the costs to students participating in athletics?
One of the things that the school committee would have to decide is if it's bringing in those types of fees, does it want to set up that account that way? So that would be a school committee decision. As you know, anything to do with specialized accounts like that have to be set up not only through the school committee first and foremost as the controlling body, but then, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure that it also has to go through town meeting approval to set up the actual account. After that, it's under school committee control for the purposes of just like any other account that we have. I'm sure that there could be some discussions that make that more of a joint effort, but I would leave that to the school committee and the Board of Selectmen to decide.
And if I can just add, this is Carolyn. I think one of the things that is occurring now or has, obviously now we haven't had sports in the spring, is that Norton school system has had to actually go out and find other fields and other places for students to do sport. So there have been fees that have gone out to other fields so that students could do lacrosse, for example. The field just really wasn't safe. So I think that those are some costs that we incurred that we wouldn't be continuing to need to pay if we had fields that were appropriate for our sports teams.
That's a good point, Carolyn. Thank you. I do remember, I think Dinesh discussed that too when he last presented this to us in March.
Biggest issue that I have to be careful of is I have to walk a very fine line around the issue of Title IX and the issue of making sure that both male and female sports within the athletic department are treated as fairly as possible, in terms of looking at things like fields. So if we're building wonderful fields for certain male teams, we got to make sure that we're also having discussions about all other sports. So if you had a football field, it can be used for girls soccer, boys soccer, girls lacrosse, and so on and so forth. But if all of a sudden somebody said, well, we're going to have a turf baseball field, and we're not really looking at softball as an opportunity as well, we could get ourselves into some binding issues, especially if it's an actual choice that people make as part of a project.
Do you guys have those cost calculations for the money that's being spent for these other field fees and whatnot? I know.
Yeah. Yep. So it's line items within our budget that we have to. I'll give you a perfect example. We had to find it the first year because we literally had to shut down the field because it was a mud pit, especially in the center of the field. It was the year that we had a little bit more snow and wet weather than we typically do. And that's what led to the lacrosse teams all being sent down to Finburg, and we worked a deal out with the Y. It wasn't overly expensive, but over time, I'm not sure we would have continued to get that cost. And the field was not conducive to lacrosse in terms of playing. And the other part is one that people don't like to hear, but I do have a responsibility for the safety of these kids. And kids getting out of their high school to go home is someone else's responsibility. But if they're playing athletics under the name of Norton Public Schools or Norton High School, I have some responsibility to make sure that students are as close to campus as possible, or I have to actually provide transportation for those students, even if it's just a practice.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, do you know what we're paying? I know this is not a question for right now, but what were the maintenance fees for the fields?
For that particular Finburg situation?
No, for us to maintain our own. And I know sometimes they were at the point you couldn't use them at all, but what was the monthly average?
So we have 2 full-time people outside that take care of everything to do with our outside buildings and grounds. But they also have to spend time specifically in the fall and the spring just on the fields. In the winter time, they're predominantly doing other things, i.e. with snow and so on. And they also have just the regular buildings in terms of the back of the JCS and the LGN and so on and so forth. And then we have the actual costs of lawn mowing gas, so on and so forth. Those would be some of the things that we could actually cut down on. It wouldn't become zero because I'm still going to have areas that need a lawnmower, but you're not going to be using lawnmowers on the entire back of the yell if it's a turf area or the high school. It's a whole different approach that you're utilizing. But we can get some cost breakdowns through Matt's office in the next week or so that you have some general thoughts of numbers and what it looks like from personnel to actual expenses. We'd have to take a look. We buy everything in bulk when it comes to stuff like gas, so we'd have to kind of break down what we think we're using as an estimate, and we can provide some of those to you.
Yeah, I think that would be great just for people to understand what we're paying now, and then, you know, what we expect the cost to be once the complex is completed, and then obviously the cost savings opportunities with the fees that we can collect from others. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Michael.
Dr. Babbitt, just I'm getting up to speed on this project. So roughly it's been a 2-year project you're doing evaluation with, and the one that you're recommending is about $8 million, give or take.
Yeah, it's about the numbers I have in front of me it comes in at 8.66749. So let's just call it 8.7 for the sake of discussion.
7. Okay. Great. And that is that is just behind the Yale and the high school, or does that have any improvements to any of the other facilities?
No, that creates an athletic complex in the back of the Yale school, which would include what's now called the pit field, which is the field way to the left that kind of is really used by our local football teams. Then moves to behind where the JV baseball field is. Kind of, we call it the Dust Bowl because anytime any wind comes through, that's all you get. And then runs directly behind me into my office to the softball field that's in front of my office. Then you skip the baseball field. Baseball field we're pretty happy with. It's in good shape. It's a good natural field. We continue to the football field with the track, lighting, and field itself. And there's lighting. Sorry, Michael. There's lighting on the turf field starting on the back of the L school, and don't forget also the tennis courts are part of this project currently. The pit field and the tennis courts would not have lighting. The lighting starts with the baseball and all the way over to the softball field, which would be next. And Mike, if you don't have copies of this, I'm happy to send some copies to the entire board tomorrow of the final recommendation.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll send those tomorrow.
Any other questions from the select board? I know we have members of the permanent building committee on. Before we open it up to anything from the public.
I have a question on the building proposals. And I noticed option 3, where the town hall comes in at 14 million up to option 2, where it's 17.7 million. I'm just wondering if I get some, it was probably presented to me, but I don't recall, and I'm just wondering what the differences are in the prices on those buildings.
I think if Mike Riveras is available, the architect that we've been working with, that perhaps he can answer the question for you.
I see him, but he looks to be muted. There he is.
Here he comes. The construction on the East Main Street site is complicated because of, somewhat complicated because of the existing building itself, and the kind of mobilization that's necessary in order to, move things around while you're trying to stay operational on the site. And so there are a number of costs there, and I'm going to just check my notes, and I think there are some other items too that are coming to mind at the moment.
But the plans themselves are basically the same?
That's correct.
Because
the buildings are the same, and it really has more to do with additional site costs and additional costs related to working on a fairly tight site and moving things around and keeping town hall operational.
Okay, no, it's just that the drawings that we have just have like a rough outline, which all appeared the same.
Yeah.
And where there was such a variation in the price, I just wanted to get a clarification on So it's more the fact that you have to work around people on the site versus a virgin site like over at Reservoir where you wouldn't be in anyone's way and just have the site to yourself.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Viveros, but there's also some concerns with the grading on the East Main Street site, right, because it dips down towards the back.
I mean, it's workable, but yes, those items add cost. I mean, dealing with the slope. We really, in option one, we very much end up reworking the entire site, you know, from the police station all the way to the library. So, you know, and really all the way back to public works. So, and you know, one thing that's good about that is, you know, frankly, the site needs improvements, the parking areas, the roadways, the utilities, and so we'd be addressing a lot of existing problems in this plan.
And does the East Main option include for the demolition of the existing town hall back to that?
A portion, yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Yep.
And Dinah, the last meeting, I asked about a specific cost that I can't remember, but you indicated it wasn't in this spreadsheet. Any chance your memory is better than mine on what that was?
Not a chance.
Anyone else remember?
Let's see, I'm looking at my notes.
Because I thought it added like a couple million into one of the options.
Would it be sewer versus septic, perhaps?
Oh, yes, on Reservoir Street, running
Yes.
the sewer down to Elm Street. Thank you, Jack.
I knew somebody had a better memory than me.
Oh, yeah, don't count on me.
On the proposals that are being proposed, how long are these going to last? Are these buildings, is there a chance within 5 years we're going to outgrow these buildings? Obviously, we're not 5 years, but have you guys looked at that, the scalability?
I think we're looking at a 50-year use of the buildings.
But there's projected growth.
Yeah.
And is that considering when we look at option number one, the growth of the police and or the fire department? Because what opportunities do we have to grow them if we go with option one?
Well, the fire department will grow into the part that's left of the town hall.
But that's not going to be much, right? I thought that most of that's being demoed.
No, well, the gymnasium part of the town hall is being demoed. The other part is going to remain. And we have not had a chance, we haven't been approached by the police chief about additional growth needs in the future, so we really can't speak to
that. What would this do for the highway department? There's obviously Charter Commission's talking about a public works department, and has there been any thought on their spot? How does that tie into there, or is there?
No, there was no discussion with the highway superintendent or the board about, you know, expanding the highway garage or the department, so I'm sorry, I can't speak to that either.
Okay.
No, you know, the other thing too was option one didn't include, you guys were looking at an additional parcel right behind town hall, and I think Mike, you said that you hadn't heard from the property owner. Was that a cost that we didn't account for too?
I think Mike Viveros had said that would be nice if we had it, but I don't think that was used in any of his designs to date.
That's correct.
What benefits provide to us that piece of land? Mike, you're muted again.
Say that again.
What benefit would that piece of land provide? Does it provide additional access or egress?
It wouldn't provide access or egress, but it would provide better flow, and Mike can talk better than me on that.
Yeah, it would provide better site flow, and I think parking could be perhaps a little closer. It would also help a lot during the construction period in terms of, again, keeping the site operational, you know, providing necessary parking. And so, you know, I actually think the cost of the site, I mean, if it could be purchased for probably what its true value is, you actually could see some savings on the construction side just with the kind of shifting around that's going to have to happen during construction if you don't have it.
Can I add something? It's Beth from the Council on Aging.
Sure.
Yeah, one of my concerns with Site 1 is now that we're in this COVID virus right now, outdoor space is so vital, and I know that that's about as tight. So I just want to make sure people are thinking that on that Site 1, they were looking at a 2-story Council on Aging, and I just want to make sure we have enough room to be able to do outdoor things.
Dinah, was outdoor space as part of the programming for Council of Aging something that was considered?
Yes, we had looked at a little bit of passive recreation on the various sites to make sure that there was space. Unfortunately, we did not have a crystal ball and could not see the current pandemic coming. But we feel we've addressed, the issues of outdoor space adequately for the next 50 years.
And those are included in the options as presented to this point?
Yes.
And Dinah, if I can ask, which option provides the most outdoor space right now? Is it the Reservoir Street?
The Reservoir Street. It provides an extensive passive recreation area. We can use conservation grants possibly to work with it. Could be a whole package for the town Council on Aging and the passive recreational areas for the town.
Okay, and I know at the last meeting, I had relayed you guys during the EDC's information session on the changes in the bylaw. This was brought up by a resident of Reservoir who didn't feel that was an appropriate location, and I had asked if there were any ways to change access into that site so that it wasn't going through the neighborhood. Rather, it would be through 140. I don't know if you guys have had time to look at that or consider that, but I think there might be strong opposition to using that just because of its location to get to it.
There is no access to 140 from that property. And another option that you could look at would be just putting the Council on Aging down there and leave the town hall at 70 East Main, and it would reduce the traffic flow down there.
Mike, can you just clarify that? So that on the commercial side of that property, Mansfield Ave, there's no access to that property on that resident?
No, this property is not up by Mansfield Ave. It's down by Elm Street.
Okay. Oh.
Could we build it? Could we build a road?
We'd have to buy other people's property to get there.
There is a parcel, at least some months ago, the parcel was for sale. That's between 140 and Wheaton parcel.
That was up closer to the reservoir, correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it kind of butts up. It's along the reservoir between the Wheaton property and the main and what I believe is 140, right? Mm-hmm.
Right, where the octagonal building is. Yeah.
We have to speak with Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Any other questions from either Select Board, School Committee, PBC?
Jack, I have one more question, if I could, before we pivot off of this or open it up. I know that we saw a couple times the plans for the town hall and the senior center. I'd like to ask the school committee if they have a diagram that they could share now on screen to show us just their plans. Oh, perfect. Look at that.
You see that, Renee?
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome. So this was the final plan that Dr. Valletta was referring to. So I think if we kind of look right here, this is sort of the high school. So these were the areas that were part of the plan. The track and football field. This would be sort of the larger athletic complex. Down here is the pit field and tennis courts. So I don't know if you can see it well. I might be able to make it a little bigger.
Sure, if you could. Is there additional parking included in this design?
It doesn't appear.
There is not.
There is not.
That was in a separate model, other example, and we just really looked at the cost of what was put in for parking. We thought it was pretty significant.
And you think that with multiple sports going on at once, the current parking at the high school as well as Yale is sufficient?
I do.
Okay.
Dr. Bada, just for clarification, the softball field's being located?
Yeah, so the baseball field that's natural in between the two stays. The natural softball field in the back of the school stays. And then the current softball field by my office becomes a baseball field because of the if you will, the length, and the softball field gets moved to the other side by where the tennis courts are. And then the fields in between it are what are called multi-purpose fields. So if you take a look at that, that's the size of a soccer field or 3 small fields. And then there's a potential here of there's lighting all the way around it, starting at literally right where the tennis courts are. You'll see that there's a little bit of a connection walkway that comes all the way like this and then all the way up by the baseball field where it currently is. So no one has to cross any specific traffic lane, if you will, to be able to go to their car until they actually get to the lot.
Okay. So the lighting starts here and then it moves itself over here. So it's this pit field and the tennis courts that wouldn't be lit.
Right.
And referring to the baseball field, this is the baseball field that will remain. You can kind of get right here.
And so if you know where my office is, Carolyn, if you could show that, which is right with the big right there, right to the left of that is where right now the softball, what do you call it, pitcher catcher area, hitting area is.
Yep.
Potentially that's a parking area, but for the amount of costs, we feel that long term it would be a lot less than what a diagram like this is showing. We've done that before at the other schools using Keith's office in the highway department if it was supposed to be needed later for a significantly less amount of cost.
Now, with the picture up, which fields are natural and which ones are turf?
So the baseball fields is natural, and to the far left, behind the school, is the softball field. So on the other, go up a little more, yeah, that's the softball field. Those are the main natural fields.
Okay. And the ones that are shaded, the green are turf?
Yes, that's so the football field, exactly.
I assumed it, but I didn't want to make the fool out of you and me.
And Mr. Bramwell, the cost of the pitch field between turfing it or actually just rebuilding it as a natural grass field is about $300,000 difference.
Okay.
So we didn't think long term that keeping that with grass, having to run water, electricity, and all of that makes sense long term. But if you were to cut that from the project and the tennis courts, then the project overall cost comes down to about $7.3 million.
If I can just scroll, I can sort of do the breakdown.
Yeah. And each of these lines is broken down into very specifics, including contingencies and soft costs. So we all know what happens in projects when that takes place. It can be a very, very good positive for everybody, and sometimes, unfortunately, it can be a negative as well. But those have been placed into our project costs.
Okay, thank you.
And the date on that is the 5th of November, 2019. So we're coming up on a year.
And because I have a good memory, I know exactly what that pit field can be like.
Yeah.
How long is that memory, Brad?
Well, let's put it this way. I can remember playing football on that field, and the quarterback, who actually was Lee Birchall, who they have the fields across from LG named for, and it was during practice, we decided to let the offensive line decided to let the defenders come through, and they jumped on him, and the face mask on his helmet got stuck in the muck, and they had to take his helmet off to get him up, and then they had to dig the face guard out of the turf. So it can be slightly muddy down there.
Dr. Benedict, are they going to be doing any drainage improvements for the softball field or the baseball fields? We know when you get those spring rains, you get about, especially the softball field, you're under a foot of water.
Are you talking the two natural?
Yeah, the two natural fields. Are they doing any drainage?
No, we didn't put any drainage into the project with those two fields. However, that is where the two turf fields come into play. So this is an opportunity for us to have a softball game that can't be played on the softball field be played on the turf. Same thing with baseball.
One question for me, Dr. Bayetta. What is the expected lifespan of the turf?
So turf has traditionally been right around the quote 10-year mark, but it can go a lot longer depending on its use and its upkeep. For example, how often you roll it, clean it, and so on and so forth, which is minimal. I mean, it's not your typical cleaning, cutting grass and all that stuff process. Franklin, take that back. A community, I don't know if it's Franklin, but a local community did one a year ago and came in at a cost at that time after 14 years of usage. But again, it depends on the wear and tear, the usage, how it's originally built. These fields can run anywhere. You're not doing any further drainage issues unless in fact there was a problem.
And do you guys have an estimate for we needed to replace these, what that cost would be?
Can run anywhere from, it depends on what you're doing. In other words, if you're actually replacing the entire turf because of its use, it could run around $300,000. Or if it's just, for example, the type of paint that you use. For example, for us, we might want to paint it more than once a year, just for the purposes of keeping it up. Or it could be that you're using more of a synthetic-like paint where it has a lifespan of 2 to 3 years.
You sure?
Really glad it smells so bad, it's unreal.
Kathleen? Yes? Can you mute your phone? Sorry. It's okay. Sorry about the smell.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bayetta. Any other questions before I see if there's anything in the public? I know there was at least one person that was looking to ask some questions.
Hey, Jack, just briefly, when we talked last meeting about the debt schedule, we had talked about really responsibility to pay that back not beginning until, I thought 2022 or 2023, but I thought in the schedules that we were given, it's actually, is it 2022? Like, can we talk a little bit about the expectation, just so the residents are more informed of when we would need to start paying that as a community?
Sure. My understanding is that the payment, so the back to the citizens, would happen once the projects are fully complete and the bond is issued. So, Fina, I think you probably know better than me what the current projection would be for project completion. I believe it's 2023.
2023, 2024 at the latest. If we have a affirmative town meeting during 2020, then you would probably begin construct 9 to 12 month construction cycle, and then you're away you go.
The point right now, 2023 to 2024 is when the first impact would start.
Yeah, so I just think that's an important fact that we should be transparent about. You know, obviously in the current environment, there are a lot of people thinking that this is not something that we should consider. But this is a long-term project, really looking out for a couple decades. And, you know, that the hope is certainly in 3 or 4 years that we're in a better space financially.
Right. That's a great question, I think, for the school committee as well. The fields, what's the thinking on when that would be complete? Is that about the same time horizon or shorter?
Mr. Chairman, when you look at the fields, the process would be approximately from beginning to end, could go as long as a year because of the seasons. In other words, once snow is on the ground, project comes to pretty much a stop. So let's say if you had just using our timelines, a May town meeting, you start July 1, you have to go through all kinds of permitting and everything else that has to take place. You're probably not putting the shovel into the ground any time soon that fall. You're probably looking at the following spring. So that in itself right there would take some time. And then again, the goal would be to try to get it done before, let's say, the first snow comes in November, in terms of the entire project. And again, that would depend on when you're laying down what needs to be laid down. For example, you gotta be careful about things like cement, in terms of the time of the year and all of that stuff. So it's pretty much about it from beginning to end, a good 16, 18 months.
Okay, so we'd be looking at 2022 at the earliest, if not longer.
Yeah, the goal when the project was first put forward was that we would be playing on it by 21, but we're going to be a good year behind depending on when this comes up.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might, the reason that the building projects go out so long is that after approval, we do have to then hire a project manager. The architect then does final drawings. We have to take that out to bid. We have to bid for a general contractor. That usually takes up the good part of the first year. So it's not like the project would be, slowing down. That's just the normal construction process before you actually put a shovel into the ground.
And pardon my ignorance on this topic, but would the athletic complex also fall under the PBC? I know it's not technically a building, but it is a large capital project. I think that falls within the purview of you guys.
Building committee, right? Yeah, so we would be working with Dr. Bayetta and the school committee.
Two questions, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. Are there any savings between the two projects? The three projects that if you guys were taking it, would be like one project manager that would be taking it all, or no?
Dinah, they're two different. No, that's all right. They're two different, different type of projects. We would be looking at building construction. They are looking at athletic field construction. So there would be two different clerks.
And the other question is, do we know the median house, what the median house price is in Norton?
I believe we said earlier it was between $312,000 and $315,000.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Hey, Jack, if I may ask, Mike, I know that you provided some debt schedules for existing debt. Are there opportunities over the next 3 years where we as a town are paying off existing debt?
I can get you that. We don't have much coming off. I'll get you a list of everything that's coming off for the next meeting. And on the bonds, I'll check with our financial advisor, but Joe was saying, I think the life expectancy of the field is 10 years. That bond may only run for 10 years, but I'll check with the financial advisor and see what they allow for borrowing on that.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone in the public that would like to ask any questions or make any comments about this. Just please be sure to state your name when you start speaking.
Hi, Jack. This is Becky Harrington. I do have a question, one for the school and one for the buildings department. Dr. Bayetta, are the physical education classes going to be able to access those fields as well?
So it'll be open to our physical education classes, any of our wellness classes, and consideration also depending on which fields to utilize it as community fields.
Great. And have traffic patterns been assessed in any of these building plans, especially with the Reservoir Street being residential?
I would ask Mr. Viveras to address that. I don't believe we have done a traffic study as of yet, but I don't want to completely commit to that. I know the ones on Route 123 are basically the same. Mike?
That's correct. The traffic study has not been performed.
Mm-hmm. Will these be up for discussion at the town meeting, or is that when it's voted on for the final project decision?
The decision as to where to place these projects is up to the Board of Selectmen, and the town meeting would be voting on the projects as brought forward. You know, with that, it's, the board gets to make the decision, and then we go forward with one option.
Sure, and then is there a chance for the town to be heard on opinions regarding the 3 placements?
Oh, I do hope between now and town meeting, we'll be having a lot of public hearings and comments on this. That's the intention.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Anyone else have any comments?
Jim Slattery, I was in the spirit of openness here, because we're supposed to meet with the school committee on their choice G. The last tennis courts were built on a leaching field, and that ended up being a poor choice. Now I see the back end of this whole project is near a swamp, and somebody talked about a foot of water in the softball field. What happens when we have the 50-year flood? Is that going to destroy the football field? Is it going to destroy the ball fields? I mean, we're sitting on the edge, and I understand we have an aggressive conservation commissioner or inspector, or what, I forget what her actual title is, and she wouldn't let us do this too close. But if we get a 50-year flood, are we going to flood out all these things? You're complaining now about poor conditions of the field, which were made because of placement, but we're going to put new fields on top of the old fields and have, I think, the same problems. But Dr. Bayetta can answer that to the chairman.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Slattery, thanks for your question. It's a good one. First of all, I'm building a knock, and the two of us will both be on it, so we can enjoy each other's company. To joke, Mr. Slattery. The current project, as it's been put together, looks literally at all of the land and all of the issues, right? So just like the question that was just recently asked about a traffic study, we will have to take a look at some of the questions you just said that would be the best fit, i.e. do the tennis courts have to be slightly moved because of a question of there's too much clay, for example, or there's too much of I'm not a soil specialist, so I can't speak specifically, but what we would do is then look at the project potentially to make some shifts. We know that over the far side, where what's called the pitch field, that they looked at the issue of drainage there. When you look on the other side of the softball field, our softball field in the back of the building is not the one that ever gets full of water. It's the baseball field on the back side as it goes closer to the conservation land or the swampland there. And that's one of the reasons why we went with the turf fields for baseball. Can I address the question of a 50-year that it's going to not fall under? As was said, I think the other day by someone at town meeting, most of Norton has been built on some type of really significant wetland. So again, those are things that would probably have to take a look at from the experts once the first shovels are in the ground, the pre-testing that would take through the commission. They're going to have to take a look at the soil and all of that stuff. That's all currently part of our cost analysis for the project as well. I don't know if that addresses your question.
Sorry, I'm just finishing a bit of my dinner. I think as we've seen from the sewer project down Main Street, including allowances for, as you're saying, the geotechnical work to understand what the conditions are below grade, is going to pay dividends down the road, especially with how fun our land is around here. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Zach Tillis, how are you? The town's going to be asked to approve $40 million roughly for all these 3 projects, which, as everybody knows on this call, is a major uphill battle. As part of these hearings moving forward, as it's being presented to the town, I think you need to develop what is the alternative, what is Plan B if this is not developed. What do the sports programs look like at the schools if these fields aren't repaired? What happens to the employees at City Hall if we don't get a new city hall. That's some way, somehow that's gonna have to be addressed. Same thing with the senior center. What is a plan B? If people don't come up with, I think you're asking about $150, $200 a year more in property tax, what does that look like for Norton, city, town, senior center, and schools?
That's a great question. And
Great question.
I know that at least on our side, we have been asking for cost estimates from Chris Carmichael, the building inspector, for fully renovating the town hall to address some of the more pressing issues that we have. I know we've gotten part of that. There's been historical studies that have been done, but definitely testing, and we call that the null hypothesis, the cost of doing nothing. It's not zero, so we need to understand that both in terms of the cost of addressing the issues that are present, the lost opportunity cost for what we can do with these new programs and buildings, and so that's definitely something that's been discussed and continues to be evaluated. And on the flip side of that, there's also the financial considerations for what it's going to take to operate these new buildings. Both the town hall and the council of aging are growing in substantial footprint. I think there needs to be some consideration for what that looks like in terms of operational expense increases as well, which we know the operational side of our budget isn't any better than the capital investment piece. So if we are looking at more staff or more cleaning or more utility usage, all that needs to be fully considered and transparently presented to the public so they can make as informed a decision as possible. I think it would be a shame if we, move the Council of Aging, for example, from a former one-room schoolhouse to the facility that they deserve, and we're not able to do any additional programs or services. And the important thing is to try to do things right by the citizens of the town, especially if they're investing their hard-earned money into these projects. So.
I agree with that, but also on the flip side of that, if this is not approved and you are forced, and for example, if the school department is forced to do repairs to the fields out of the operating budget, or you're forced to do repairs to the city hall out of the operating budget, people might understand that's going to equate to layoffs because that money has to come from somewhere. So I think everybody needs to understand both sides of the equation is my point.
Jack, if I can add to that too, I mean, we've talked in the past, that the way that we've talked about approaching it is when we put this article on for the project, that the article after it is going to be for repairs, because if it fails, we still need to do something. So again, there's still going to be a cost to the town. Town hall is not going to stand on its own for much longer. So, that's something why we've asked that question about what's it going to cost to repair, even though several times it's been, it's not financially sound, which is great, I get it, but we have to have a backup plan. So I think that we can look at all three projects that way, because certainly the COA, I believe from Mr. Carmichael's update several months ago, he said that building, in 2 years is going to be in dire straits. So that'll have to be something we consider. Not that that's obviously our first option, but to Jack's point, we need to understand it and be transparent.
Mr. Slattery, I see your hand up.
To Zach's question, and I hate to be redundant, but I think we have to bite the bullet on these projects, because if Zach had a car that was rusted out, needed a front end, needed tires, to go to work in Boston, would he have a plan B, or would he just buy a new car? I mean, we can't throw bad money. You can't keep throwing bad money into these buildings and keep doing patchwork work to keep people in the building. The town hall doesn't have an occupancy permit. The roof's leaking on people. I was just up there paying my taxes and heard from one of the employees that they're sitting next to their bucket and have been issued rain gear and an umbrella. I mean, is this the plan B of the town? And in Dr. Baeta and the school committee's plan, we've been paying fees to other towns for use of their fields, and we keep throwing that money out of town when we could be putting that money into our fields. And as was put forward in some of the presentations that I attended, we could be collecting fees from other towns for use of our fields. So I don't think a plan B is an option. Honestly, I think the town has to bite the bullet. We have to do this. And as I ended my last sentence before somebody gets hurt or something else, and the town pays a lot of money in a lawsuit, there should be new buildings. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, and I think, Zach, you've got a great question, and so that we make sure that we this 5-year-old is sagging. It does not meet handicapped accessibility. There's no fire protection. There's very little insulation. So, you're talking about a whole new HVAC system. So that's going to be quite problematic. And just for a point of reference, and we do have to have these numbers, you're absolutely right. But the first discussion for upgrading the town hall was in 1995. When it wasn't meeting standards, and the chimney effect in there from having a second floor on a gymnasium is quite frightening, especially when there's rain coming in and getting into the electrical wiring. And it's a frightening building once you really get inside of it and look at it. But we will have those numbers for you and for the public. I think that's a very good question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dr. Whitaker.
Thank you. This is not going to go over well with some, but I need to say it just because I'm responsible for the biggest budget in town. One of my biggest concerns about the past is that we do not spend the money once we build something new. And I can assure you that my budget is increased in facilities because of the new high school. I know it has. My energy costs as well. So to me, the plan B is not only, are we looking at, the how do we spend money over and over again, but I think the other thing is, and I'm really proud of this, and I can thank Wade Lazat and the school committee for it. It's never sexy to ask for $72,000 so that you can have your HVAC system cleaned every single year. But we went years without cleaning them. So my point here is that if you walk into your high school now, you're going to see that our high school, we're painting it, we're taking care of it. You have to spend the constant operational money in order to maintain these buildings. So as Ms. O'Brien said, the building will last 50 years. The fields will last X number of years. If you don't, then you're right back to where you were. You're spending money and you have to spend it. And it's never fun money to make a choice between laying off a teacher and having to clean your HVAC vent. But the fact of the matter is, it's a safety issue. And safety has to be the number one priority. And we're spending the money, I can assure you, in the school department. If you look at our line items in terms of facility costs, we're spending more money because we're trying to maintain not having to continuously go back for high-priced items that cost significantly more than going to Mike units and the capital fund and saying, can we have $135,000 to do all the gym floors over again? Because they haven't been done in 10 years, and they should be done every 10 years. So just as a point.
Mr. Chairman.
If I might add, Mr. Chairman, to Dr. Bayetta's point, I think that is something that the town has, through town meetings and various decisions that have been made, we do look at the operating budget to keep the lights on. And one of the ways we've done it historically is to nickel and dime maintenance. And we are at the point where that nickel and diming has caught up with us. And we really don't have that much of a choice. We can spend, I don't know, $7 million on a new council on aging, or we can spend roughly, $6 million on a non-conforming lot with a 125-year-old building, to try to fix it. So where's the best bang for your money? I think that the town, select board is looking at that. I know the building committee is trying to look forward for that. What is the best expenditure of funds at this point in time for the maintenance and preservation of town buildings? And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, this is where we are. And it's the rock and the hard place, but you know, we have to get over the rock.
I was thinking that exact same quote.
I think you'll find amongst the members of the various boards on this call that I think we all realize that the proverbial cannot keep getting kicked down the road. You know, eventually either you're going to hit a wall or the can's going to then fall apart. Something needs to be done, and I think it's incumbent on all boards to explore these projects as possible, to through why we need them, why we can't afford to not do them, and what it's going to look like. So I look forward to being able to do that, hopefully, in the near future. Which brings me to my next point, assuming there are no more public comment. Hearing none, I think it's important that to note that these projects have been, call it in the public sphere. I think the first public hearings for at least the town hall and senior center were February, March of last year. So we're coming up on 18 months.
This particular section of the project, we've been at it since 2017.
Understood. You guys have been working with those informational sessions when we have the estimates and the concept designs.
Right.
Was 18 months. And dare I say that there has not been much forward momentum since that time. So I think it's time to, pardon my French here, but to shit or get it off the pot and to make sure that we can make a decision and put this in front of the town. Rather than letting this linger over us like the sword of Damocles, it's time to make a plan to make a decision. I'm not saying we need to make one tonight or next week, but there needs to be a plan in place that we collect the information that we need to make an informed decision. And I open that up for discussion amongst us as to what that information is, and then we can talk about how best to get it. And if that involves, call it preliminary public hearings to get the feedback, as Ms. Harrington had mentioned, that we do that and incorporate that. I don't want to be held to an arbitrary timeline of, if there's a special town meeting in August or a fall town meeting. I think it's more important to take the time to do it right and then schedule the relevant meetings to support it. Again, that's my personal belief. I'm trying it back to the group to discuss.
You said it best, Jeff.
I mean, I didn't know if we were going to have to make a decision tonight or not. To be very honest, I'm stuck between proposal number 1 and number 3. And number 3 catches my eye only because it's $5 million, almost $5 million less than number 1. But I like the idea of number 1 having the both buildings in the center of town where the municipal complex is now. It's just, in my mind, trying to justify the extra $5 million.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Parker.
This is Frank Parker. Are these different options available on the town website or any place for those of us who are not in the know to take a look at them? Forgive my ignorance, but I went looking for them earlier. It's not able to track them down.
I believe they are. Mike, we had talked about that at the last meeting to make sure that the updated plans were posted in a logical spot under whether it was PBC or Town Hall project.
I think they're under the PBC.
Thank you. If I don't know, Mike, if we have anyone else on board, if Jen or Charlene is on, if they could possibly navigate to that spot on the site and put the link in the chat, we can make sure that gets shared out there as well. And for the athletic complex, I will recall, guys, that there's a link to their presentation materials on the Norton Public School site. Is that still accessible?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. And it's just, once again, for anyone who's listening or tuning in late, that is option G that's recommended.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the only option that is shown. Is that correct, Dr. Bayetta?
Yeah, we moved it to the last option, G, after the formal vote to place an article forward, coming as a recommendation to the athletic complex committee to the school committee.
So Jack, I'm on the website. It looks like things were posted, but there's only one page. So I think it would be beneficial to have the presentation that we had delivered to us. It looks like, and Jack, it looks like there are 3 separate links, but it is all under boards and committees and permanent building committee that I see it. I'm still looking there. There might be a couple more links.
Mr. Chair. Diana, what are you looking for us from the select board tonight? Are you looking for anything in particular from us this evening? Or was this you want a presentation?
No, I was looking for, I'll be honest with you, the building committee is looking for a decision. We can't move forward with one of these options until you all make a decision. And I'm looking for, where do we go? My committee is meeting again on August 10th. And either we just concentrate our efforts with the envelope study and put this away, but I thought we had given you all the information you wanted tonight in advance, to hopefully make a decision. And Mr. Bramwell, I'm very grateful that you expressed your likes and your dislikes. So I'm looking for a decision.
Dinah, when did you say you were meeting on the 10th?
Meeting on the 10th.
So
and if you want this to go anywhere, Renee, before, if you even want this to go in the spring, you all have to make a decision.
I'd like it to go in the fall, personally. We meet again on the 6th. My one concern. What?
There's not enough time for it to go in the fall. This is, for all practical purposes, you're in the middle of August. If you're looking at an October town meeting, there's not enough time to do it justice to get this information out to the public.
No, I agree. I'm just saying when I would like it. I'm not saying it's feasible.
Oh, I'd like it at a town meeting next week.
I wanted it at the special town meeting.
But no, we are seriously looking for you guys to make a decision.
So what is the cost what's the additional cost for Reservoir Street? Is it under $1 million for the sewer that we were talking about, or is it more? And then we have the open question just to explore whether or not access to that area could be from a different location other than Reservoir Street. Like, what I'd like to do, and to Jack's point too, right? Somebody had indicated they'd like to provide some information. I mean, I'd like some time for us to get information, even if it's just somebody shooting us an email or posting it, and then us voting no later than on the 6th. And I say that because I think, I'd like to hear more from the people on what their thoughts are. I mean, I've been contacted on both option number 1 and option number 3 specifically, in disagreement of those options. So I would just like some time to officially, ask residents to weigh in on their opinion, and they can do that through the website on the forums, or, Jack's pretty good about watching social media, so we could probably always put something out there, and then just look at comments coming through.
Okay, so I want to make a list of exactly what you all need on August 6th. Prior to August 6th, in order to make an informed decision.
So we
because I'd really like to narrow you down to August 6th for final.
Yeah, and so the same questions as last meeting, right, on Reservoir are the additional cost that we don't see in here for the sewer, and then is there a potential, and if there is, what the cost may be, and it could be rough estimate, to have access from 140 versus primary access from Reservoir.
Okay, anything else? I've got 2 items.
Unless you have a way to collect feedback from the public versus going door to door, I think that's my only question. Oh, the cost and potential opportunities with purchasing that additional piece of property behind Town Hall.
Property behind Town Hall. And to Zach's question, the cost of not doing anything.
Yep. I think that's one we've been asking for a while. Jack, I don't know if we've talked about the operational expenses for a while, which, Mike, I think you had a follow-up a couple months ago you provided us with the operational costs for the municipal buildings, and we had asked to have that all on one sheet. You showed us
May I interrupt just for a second,
Sure,
Renee?
please.
I think you might be putting the cart before the horse here. If you're looking for the cost of doing operational expenses for the buildings, that would be something, in my opinion, that you would take to town meeting when the voice of the town meeting is heard, whether or not to vote the projects up or down.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying let's get a plan in place, and then we can go to town meeting. And at town meeting, we should have all those answers ready for the residents who are there to vote on the projects. So it shouldn't be a way to sway your decision as to where you want to put it.
But it goes back to if we can't afford to run it, then it's not going to be a good solution, right? It's not a good option for us.
But I don't think you need that answer in order to make a decision on the location.
Right.
No, I think what I'd like to see is the collective cost right now of Town Hall and the COA, right? So that we understand that. And I think also that we need, Mike, some final numbers. We don't need this for the 6th, but numbers on what those renovations look like if this were to fail.
Because right now you're dealing with, you've got the same layout of the buildings, the 2 buildings, and you're just dealing with placement right now.
Yeah.
So that's really where you need to focus, in my opinion.
So how would we feel if we tried to schedule a high-level overview, inviting the public for, I would say, as soon as next week, to review the various site options, and to, under the guise of helping inform our decision. I don't think it's feasible to do multiple sessions on multiple days, where we can get the word out and do that. I think there's people who have very valid feedback, especially the folks that live on Reservoir or on any of the other options that are there, people who might be using the facilities. I certainly would be interested in doing that rather than making a decision based on our own experiences. Rather get informed by some of the folks that are there. Mr. Riveros, if you'd be able to present at that, and we can ask some of the questions. I think it's important to state that we don't want to provide answers to things that we don't know. When it comes to, if someone asks about operational expenses, we can acknowledge that it is likely they will go up. We are studying that, and we will have information prior to any formal vote about whether or not these projects go forward. I don't want to get into a spot where we're throwing out answers because they sound good, but they're not based in fact. I think it's more important to say we don't know, but we are working on it, and we will get you the information. So if we can agree to that, I would be happy to participate in any public sessions either next week or the following week, but prior to the 6th.
You can't go wrong with public session and answering questions. You just can't, you cannot go wrong with answering people's questions. I think that's a good idea.
I propose we use next Thursday for that. I would also propose perhaps a slightly later start, maybe 7 o'clock, to allow more people to get home and settle from work. I can certainly be available for that. I think the key people will probably be yourself, Dinah, Mr. Riveros, town manager, and anyone else who would like to participate. Dr. Bayetta for the athletic complex, if we can include that as well. Because I really want to try to consider these as one large investment. Again, my opinion only.
So that would be the Thursday the 30th at 7?
That's what I see.
Okay.
We have a parent meeting about the schools reopening. Joe, don't we that night?
We do.
At 6:30.
And if I'm not mistaken, last night we were about at least an hour and a half, if not longer.
It was 8:39 last night.
With 300 people.
Yeah.
And we kept people out, unfortunately, because we didn't set the system up. That's what's on everybody's, unfortunately, that's on my side, that's what's on everybody's top list. But again, that project, and again, we'll do anything, and we have Matt Wells, I could defer Matt and Wade, some of my folks to go to that meeting if they're available, because they've been part of that project since day one.
Joe, I think if you have another 300 people, I mean, there's going to be a contingent of those people who want to be on the call, and we would like them to be able to be on the call. So I think we should schedule a different day.
Well, that's my thing is, we anticipate hundreds of people. It's just been Zoom is a really popular way to get a lot of good information out. People actually do show up. So my second comment was going to be exactly what you said, Renee, which is you might be missing out on some of my folks that are interested in the town hall, that are also interested in senior center, that are also interested in what's going on with the schools. I mean, everybody's taxpayers. So I'd hate to see you folks not get a good turnout because people are more worried about the start of school right now.
How about Wednesday, the 29th instead? And as I sit here and think about it, I think the focus is probably, it needs to be more on the proposed locations for town hall and community center, because I think that's what the decision needs to make. You guys have already recommended the athletic complex. So I think it would be helpful to have you on there in case questions come up, but I don't think that should be the primary focus. So Wednesday, July 29th at 7, is that doable?
Works for me.
Yeah, we'll make it work on the school side. I may have to make some schedule changes, but our plan is in a different place, if you will, for lack of a better choice. Right now, it seems to me like the board is trying to make a good decision on where you are thinking of putting this project, so then that BBC can do its due diligence with the rest. Our project is at the point of cost and barely really going out, getting approval and going out to bid. So I think we're in some ways in two different places.
I would agree with that. Mr. Units and Mr. Viveros, is that workable for you, Wednesday at 7?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay. In terms of the technology platform, Joe, I believe you mentioned that you used, was it like a webinar system last night rather than the open?
No, we're going to be moving to that. We used just a regular Zoom, and what happened is we didn't open it up, so we ended up probably kicking out a good number of people. We out of 300. Okay. So I think the webinar is probably the best way to go, and then Q&As can be done with that as well, with people typing in questions or that type of thing.
Okay.
And just let us know that we have capacity for 1,000 now.
Okay. Could we use the platform that you guys have to host this? I like the idea.
You know what? I'll check tomorrow with Karen. I don't know if she's on this line right now, Karen, our Director of Instructional Tech, but again, if it's just turning over and starting it for you or whatever, we're happy to do that.
That's great.
Hi, this is Karen. We can absolutely do that.
Awesome. Karen, you just became a Thank you.
And I think Jack is being overzealous with the amount of people that will attend. I hope we get that many people, but
honestly, it's less about the people. It's more about trying to control the incoming feedback that's there, right? Even in our small meetings with 40 people, you have issues with muting and whatnot. The webinars allow for much more presenter control. Questions can come in through a centralized system, and they can be addressed that way, and it's not constantly asking people to mute or unmute. It's more controlled, which I think is beneficial for the purposes of this, which is informational sharing and soliciting feedback.
But was that what was used last night? Because it looked just like a normal Zoom session.
We used the same session feature meeting like you're using right now last night. So Zoom also allows us to do a webinar.
Yeah, I think what was nice last night is people were using the chat feature, and you guys were very successful at reading those questions, so it was controlled in that environment, which I thought you guys did a great job with that meeting too, and appreciate you putting it together.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the interest of releasing the school committee for their executive session and to moving on with our own meeting, I think we have enough here. As I understand it, just to recap, we are committing to an August 6th decision deadline for the PBC in advance of their August 10th meeting. The questions open that Dinah and team will work on is the cost for the reservoir site sewer and potential for 140 access, and the potential for purchasing the property behind Town Hall. Am I missing anything else?
The cost of doing nothing.
Cost of doing nothing, yes. Yeah. Which I actually have in big letters in my thing, cost of doing nothing. Keeping it backwards. Thank you, Donna.
So, Jack, actually, we do go into executive session for the school committee, so I think we will head out now. Just wanted to thank you for pulling this together and letting us all be together to talk about this. If anybody does have questions about the athletic complex, we do have the Let's Talk option on the school website, and Dr. Bayetta is amazingly proficient at responding to emails. So if anybody does have questions between now and sort of when we have another open discussion, certainly use that option. But for now, I think we'll just need to need a motion to end our school committee meeting. So if it's okay.
Madam Chair, do you have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining with the associations of the Norton Public Schools, and you will not be returning to a public session?
Okay.
And you would need a roll call.
So we need a motion to end this portion of our school committee meeting to go into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining. Is there a motion? Thanks. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Dan. Sherry?
Yes.
Dinesh?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Thanks, Kathleen. And Carolyn, I am a yes as well. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the night. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. Great discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. We will have those answers for you, and I look forward to the meeting on the 6th.
Hey, Dinah.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you jump, I just saw Brian Clark's video image come up. Can you add to your list a brief discussion about potential expansion with him and Chief Simmons? Just so we're more informed on that first option.
Expansion with the two chiefs.
And how that would play with option 1.
Okay, and I will, Mr. Clark, I'll probably give you a buzz tomorrow. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, and I will get in touch with the fire chief. Good heavens, they need another cup of coffee at this late day. And we'll start with some, yes, thank you. Nice little single malt. And we'll get this moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your support and your hard work.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Flaherty.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Second item in new business: early voting and mail-in ballots. Mr. Units.
Yes, I think the town clerk is on tonight. We were talking earlier this week, the notice that you get in your house that talks about early voting. I noticed on it that the last item on it is you check off whether you want the presidential election, the primary, and then it says all elections in 2020. And they failed to put on there all state and federal elections in 2020. So now people are sending these notices back, and we've kind of been put into a box where that now means all town elections also. And I know Lucia wants to talk a little bit on that. And the other thing is she wants to talk about is early voting. And in the middle of this pandemic, I just can't believe that the Secretary of State has put us in this position where we're going to have to find locations for early voting, and it's going to also be on Saturdays and Sundays. So you're creating, an opportunity for people coming in for 7 days to vote, and it's just, I don't know why they did it and why they feel they needed to do it, but they have. And Lucia's going to talk about how she's going to have to make this work.
Lucia, you're muted.
Hello. Okay? Yes. All right. First of all, the primary early voting is starts Saturday on August 22nd and ends on Friday the 28th. Locations have seemed to be a problem. We don't have many options in Norton. The library was one option, but they will not allow us to not wear face masks, and we can't do that in elections, taking away someone's constitutional right. The Trinitarian Church, I went there, he was wonderful. He said, of course you can. The only issues is the Saturdays, they have AA meetings, and Sundays they have their masses. So we could go in there Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, but there's too much work after ballots are done. I prefer the mornings. Also, I checked with the VFW. The VFW said we could go there, which is great. But for the presidential primary, they usually have a haunted house, and on at the time of the presidential primary, so that if they still have it, that's not going to work out. I don't want to be bumping the residents around at all. I want one place, so just to have one place. I would like to hold it again at Town Hall. I spoke briefly with Mike, and to sit down again with Mike and the health agent. If we had it at Town Hall to close those doors from the hallway to get into the departments, either that or Town Hall, let everybody work remotely. I can monitor and check the mail and put it in the slots, and if somebody wants to come in, then they'll have the option, but I'll keep the people away. We'll also only be able to let, no matter where we go, a certain amount in at one time, and have somebody at the door to monitor when one leaves. Another can come in. It's going to be a timely thing. It's going to take quite a while. The Saturdays and Sundays, we're only required 4 hours. The weekdays, they said that it will probably be normal business hours that you have, but that's not finalized yet. They might go to the 4 hours on that. So I don't know that yet, but I really would like to go to have it done at Town Hall. The work that's involved, we collect the ballots, we have to put them in the system, and then we have to run them through the ballot machines. If we're running back and forth to a different location to grab ballots and get them back to Town Hall, then we have to be police escorted every time we're back and forth. And that's if they can't do it on their shifts, then we're going to have to pay for that. So that's the story on that. So I would really, once meeting with Mike and Chris Zahner, having a Town Hall, if it's okay with everybody.
What room in Town Hall would you propose? The same one?
As usual, the lunchroom as usual. Do the lunchroom. I was in there today, obviously, and looking for the 6-foot distance. I could put a few booths in there, and then I could go into the very back, by the back door of the hallway, and put a few more booths there also.
Okay, any comments?
I just have a question. Lucia, is there a reason why we don't look at just doing it at the school, in the gym?
In the gym? Well, they said they were good with the primary because there was no school. But what about the presidential or schools in session? We can't take the gym for 2 weeks. I wouldn't have thought we'd have that's going to create a problem.
And you don't want to move people, right?
I don't know with people.
I mean, I gotta tell you that with the presidential, I think this is gonna be a really popular year. I don't think town hall is gonna be able to accommodate the number of people who are going to come.
Well, I'll tell you that we accommodated them, we accommodated over 3,000 4 years ago. We did that, and now with the cards coming in, we've probably got about close to 1,500 cards in this week, mail-in ballots. So I don't know. I don't know where we're gonna go.
We're gonna have to shut off Sorry, Lucia, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's quite all right, Michael.
We would have to, I mean, I remember early voting in 2016, there was a line down the hallway almost out the door, in 2016. And then we're gonna have to social distance, we're gonna have to shut the front parking lot off. But do you think that's what's best? I mean, you and I have spoken about this off other times, so.
Right. Now, another thing the state is requiring is that the Saturday and Sunday early voting has got to be held in a room in your municipality. So the Saturdays and Sundays have to be held at town hall. And I'll tell you right now, the state is making everything so difficult. This is it's a nightmare, the whole thing, really.
You mean municipal building?
Building, the town hall. We have to hold Saturdays and Sundays early voting in town hall.
I'm going to throw something out there. I don't even know if this is a possibility, but we have quite a bit of buildings that are vacant. Are there a potential to talk to some of the property owners to see if we could rent
I did mention,
space?
Mike and I briefly spoke about that this past week of maybe something in Roach Brothers Plaza, one of the buildings in there.
Yeah, I mean, about 80% of it's vacant.
Right. But I don't know who's the lease, who's.
Oh, we'll shoot you contact info.
All right.
Gator out of Florida, owns the property.
Wow. I haven't been in this building, so I'm gonna just say it. Is Chartley available? The Chartley Firehouse?
I don't know.
Is Chief Simmons on? He's not on, is he?
I think it would.
Is it safe? I have no idea. I don't know the answer to the question. But
I think they'd probably have to move vehicles out of the bays, and you'd probably do it in the garage.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice.
I didn't mention it only because I didn't want to, insult the other end of town. Where it's not centrally located.
Now, just bear in mind that that's fine, but Saturdays and Sundays, we're gonna have to bring it to town hall.
Or even though it's a town.
It'll be busy.
Even
town hall, it can't be a municipal building.
They want town hall, I'm sorry. They want in your town hall, my apologies.
Oh, I thought you just said a municipal building.
No, that's your town hall.
Mr. Chairman, I saw Deputy Chief Keen he was online.
Yeah, good evening. That wouldn't be a problem, depending on the time of year. I mean, November, the weather could create a problem for the trucks. We still store a couple of trucks up there, but I'm sure we could accommodate that.
I think one of the potential issues be, I'm thinking late August, September, and then late October, you have hurricane season that's still going on. Obviously, the chances are low, but this seems like something that we would need to lock in soon, right, Lucia?
Almost definitely. I have to report to the state and give them my locations by the first weekend, into the first week in August. So we have to have something in place by then.
Thinking of the Chartley Fire Station, the only question I have would be parking. I seem to think the parking would be limited up there.
Well, there's the Barsville Station right across the street. I haven't looked at it. I mean, maybe Lucia, you guys can take a look at it and see if it would be a viable option. I think, Brad, to your point, if they were able to move the trucks out, the bay is a really good area.
Oh, no, I definitely think Yeah, it was just as an afterthought, thinking we could accommodate the people, can we accommodate the cars that would, the traffic that it would bring? I know that the town owns the station, but they don't own the building next to it that used to be the paint store. And I'm not sure where the parking goes for each of them. I'm just trying to think of the traffic flow.
Is there space in the bay on East Main?
No.
That would create more of a problem.
Yeah, you'd have people walking into an active area. I would hate to be in their way when the firemen are trying to hustle down and get into a truck.
You mean when they put the siren on, you're standing inside?
I know in the past we used to do the dog clinics there, but it does create quite a problem.
Thinking if we do need to keep this in town hall, what about the use of the selectmen's meeting room? If we can remove some of the furniture from there, it's certainly a larger footprint than where
It's
you
not handicap accessible.
Handicap.
Remember, we had to close it because we could use it for office space, but not for public.
Okay.
What about the, there's a door behind the water station. Is that a ramp that leads downstairs?
Yes, it is. Actually, if you want to go down the basement of Town Hall, I've looked at it, it would accommodate. It's not the prettiest sight in the world, but it's pretty dusty, but it's big enough to do it.
Can we maybe try to get some volunteers to clean it and slap a coat of paint on it? I remember being down there. I went down in my black work clothes with you, Lucia, and came up partially like a ghost.
But it's got the handicap ramp.
Mike, do you have any thoughts on this? You on locations? I'm very worried about having it early voting, especially when we're expecting the crowds we are at Town Hall. I'm very, very worried about it.
I think
I agree with you, Mike, and we can look at the basement option. Could be one option. We'll look at Charlie and also look at renting space. If we did have it in the town hall, we may have to have everyone work remotely on those days.
Yeah, I think it would be required.
Okay.
So your first gut is to say because of you don't want to have to move Saturday weekends at Town Hall and then.
I don't want to inconvenience the residents. If you go, let's just take Charlie. We go to the Charlie Fire Station, and then people go there on Saturday and Sunday, and it's not there. Do you know what I'm saying? They have to come to Town Hall. If it has to be, obviously it has to be. But I just now also, we have to run those ballots through. So between Brooke and myself, we'll be running back and forth. And like I said, we have to have a police officer with us. We're going to be running ballots through the machines as they come in, which we're putting the machines in the Board of Selectmen's room at Town Hall. We've got to be running the ballots through there, and we also have to have a police officer there watching us do it. That's just the beginning of everything. We haven't even started. So, but I just want to make it easiest for the residents. And
So, is there any way we might be able to ask the Secretary of State for an exemption and keeping it in one location, Charlie?
I will call them tomorrow and I will ask them. I'll just tell them that Town Hall is closed and not having a Town Hall. I will call tomorrow and ask them.
So I agree with you. We can keep it in one. If we can keep the voting in one location, I think that's critical. But anybody, I'm not sure if the whole town saw how small Town Hall was, they would be shocked. And I think it's a bad idea to try to pile, that 5 o'clock, that early voting into Town Hall. So.
All right, and also that our state computers, we have separate computers that were hooked on the state, and they're vital, obviously, and if any issues come up, we're right there with the computers, and we can sort out any problems there are right then and there.
And I think the important thing to tell the state is we will have it in a municipal building, it just won't be town hall the entire.
Right, I'll call them tomorrow.
I think though, Michael, we have to be careful because if she goes over to Chartley and we realize that we can't use that, then we put ourselves in a bind. I would first see if the option's there, not naming a location.
Yep.
Because we don't know what the parking's gonna look like or anything like that.
How about the library?
The library, I went over there and I went over there and I think what you're gonna run into is the same thing. The library will be the same as town hall. And also, as I stated, that Lee does not want anybody in that library without a mask. And if a voter comes in and they don't wanna wear a mask, they don't have to wear a mask. It's their constitutional right when it comes to elections. And we did have one at the town hall election that refused to wear a mask. So that takes out the library, and like I said, it's about the same as, it would work out the same as if you held it at town hall.
Even more reason not to have it at town hall.
So.
I don't know if you can spruce up that basement, multi-purpose.
Renee's would see too many basement makeover shows.
I have a good shop back.
Well, I mean,
I have 2 shop backs.
See?
And I'll gladly volunteer for the paint crew.
Yeah, I would too.
so I'm gonna try to put a positive spin on this and try to see the opportunity in a challenge. We just spent the better part of an hour talking about the need for a new town hall and trying to socialize that message with people. What better way than to have several hundred, if not several thousand, civically minded, engaged people come to the decrepit, tiny town hall and experience it for what it is, right? And I'm not saying to do that intentionally to inconvenience anyone, but with the lack of other viable options and the constraint issues that come up that Lucia's mentioned about, police escorts and consistency, and meeting, Saturday and Sunday and the municipal building. I think that there is an upside to doing it in there, as challenging as it may be.
So I'm hearing, Jack, don't clean the basement, don't paint it. Potentially have both areas open in town hall so they can see the tiny lunchroom, and let's market it that way. I'm just kidding.
That is what has been done for past elections, right? So it's not like we're going out of our way.
Right.
But it reinforces just how far behind the times that town hall is.
It does, but we have to be conscious of the social distance requirements, right? So using the lunchroom and doing it in an election year like this year with everything that's happened with the pandemic, like we can't put our residents through standing there for hours because we can only have a limited number of people in that space. Lucia, would you have the option to do both in the lunchroom and in the basement?
Yeah, I can do that.
As long as it's in the same building?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, we could set up, if we're having staff work from home, we could have a one-way traffic flow in and out of it, right? So,
yeah.
I see a comment from Mr. Tillis, a tent behind town hall. I think that, if I understand you correctly, Lucia, that would work for Monday through Friday, but without an exemption from the Secretary of State, it would need to be physically within a building.
I can see about a tent. I don't know if I'm crazy about the idea on that, to be honest with you, but, if the weather is cold and it's rainy and if people are waiting outside, they're going to wait outside anyway, aren't they? So.
If we have
a drive-through.
You're going to make the popcorn, Renee.
I'll make it.
It sounds like. Go ahead, Lucia. Sorry.
No, I think it would work with the basement and the lunchroom. And I think it would be good for people, like you said, Jack, to see town hall.
Yeah. Or maybe there's does each location need to be staffed by a member of your team or a volunteer?
No. Brooke and I will be there. I mean, we'll be running around. We'll be constantly. No, my poll workers will do the checking in, they vote, and that's as far as the early voting goes. We take the ballots and then we have to put them into the system that who voted, and then we'll run them through the machines.
So maybe we use more than just the basement and the lunchroom, if certain areas can be set up for.
And as well, we could, if you want to use certain areas, if we can, then what we'll do is we'll block them off by precincts. We could do that, but we just have to move fast.
When do you need a decision by?
I need a decision by the middle of next week because I have to report to the state. They have to take where everybody's going because they put it out there also themselves. They put it on their website as to where early voting is for every town and the hours.
Is this something that we need to vote on?
Well, if you want, when's your next meeting? 2 weeks?
The 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can't wait that long. Unless if you want to look at the basement first, that's the only issue, but I've already looked at it. And I know, I can put some voting booths down there and it will work. We can make it work. It's just,
Yeah, I would say if Lucia thinks it'll work, we'll just keep it at town hall and she'll either have it in the basement or she'll have it in the basement and the break room. I mean, that's what she gets the big bucks for, is to make those decisions.
Yeah, if you're confident you can do it, I'm confident in you that you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm confident I can do it.
And I'd imagine that all the trucks and things that are around that area would be moved to make it easier for residents to come.
I don't know, I think those are the fire department trucks. Deputy Chief, are those the fire department trucks on the side, your emergency trucks, right?
Yeah, we can remove those.
Okay.
Another area.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a big problem with there being a public meeting room in a public building that we can't use when it has adequate parking, it's big enough. Why can't we use the library? What right does the librarian have constitutionally to stop anybody from coming in without a mask? There is no mask chapter and bylaw about masks yet. I mean, this is a public.
It is the state, it is the state elections, it's the law that people, when it comes to the elections, if they don't wear a mask, they do not have to wear a mask. It's a
I understand that, but what right does the librarian have to stop anybody to come in a public building? And what's the consequences when they do? I mean, we have a public meeting room that's adequate size, with adequate parking, with an adequate driveway, but we can't use it because one person says, if there's one person in the election that comes in without a mask, I don't understand it. We have the building.
Well, that building itself and that room itself, if the town hall one room cannot accommodate, the library certainly cannot accommodate. They're not going to be able to accommodate all these people. So it's, to me, and it's much easier to have them all come to town hall, because behind the scenes in the work that has to be done, that we have to get done, it's going to provide us to perform faster and provide better customer service if there's any issues than running back and forth.
Well, I'm only going to say it's easier to go to the library conference room than it is to go in the deep, dark bowels of the town hall cellar.
I understand your point, Mr. Slattery. If I understand correctly, there's a weird governance structure when it comes to the library, where it is partial town and partial its own board of directors. I don't know exactly how that works. I don't know if Mike can share some, like that might have some different governance structures to there.
The library is governed by a board of directors, and I'm sure that Lee checks with them on anything such as that.
She did.
All right. So Chair would entertain a motion to designate the town hall as the early voting location for the primary and federal elections in 2020.
So moved.
Second. Do we need to include state, just all?
All elections? Okay.
All.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll go to the roll. Michael?
Would you say Michael?
No.
No. Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I vote yes. So it's a 3-1 yes. Thank you.
Good luck, Lucia. Let us know what we can do to help.
Yeah, well, thank you. Can I continue? Can I go on with a few more issues just to make you aware of what's going on?
Go away.
I'll make it quick. I'll try to make it quick. I will. With the cards, like Mike explained, with people who check all elections, as of right now, we've got about 1,200 in there. For the ones the majority of them are for all elections. Now, as Mike said, that this is something new where the special town election is coming in. Anybody who has put these all elections this year, we have to send ballots to them for the town election. So you might be with all mail-in ballots, whatever comes in for mail-in ballots, that amount of ballots has to be mailed to the town for the town election also. The ballots that are going to be sent for the early voting, for the mailing ballot for the primary, for the presidential, and for the town, I just want you aware that we have to pay postage to send out these ballots, and we're probably going to be looking close to $15,000 in postage only mailing out all these ballots. So I just want you aware of that.
Mr. Units, is that something that the CARES Act funding could cover?
We do plan on putting that in the CARES Act.
Okay.
And also anything that we have to do for the election as far as extra, for the early voting, extra people to stand outside, direct people will come after that also.
Okay.
So these requirements are specific because of the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to need, we're going to need a lot of help because the state is putting in a new module in their computer system to be able to enter these cards into the system. And we're going to have to manually enter all these cards in the system. Their module won't be up and running until August 1st or 2nd. And then we have to mail out all these ballots. So I'm going to have to go on the outside and put out there anywhere I can, other than our website, is to recruit people to come in, because with the time crunches we're going to be in between the primary and the town election and mailing out these ballots, I'm going to need a lot of people. A lot, probably. I'm going to need shifts to come in.
Okay. And the requirements to be a volunteer is you need to be 18 and a registered voter? To mail out the ballots, they can be, if they're 16 and they have to have a work permit, obviously. But, and they have to have a letter from their parents stating that they've given them permission. But if we can get college students who might not be going back to college yet, or I don't know, the primary might be good for mailing out ballots, because I don't think the kids will be back in school yet. If they can come to town hall, and I'm going to use the selectmen's room and with the tables and social distance and get these ballots. I got to get these ballots out of there. Okay.
Okay.
So this is volunteer or paid?
Paid.
Paid. Yeah. I think it would be worthwhile reaching out to the schools to see if they can put something out through their channels and see if there's any volunteers. I'm sure there's kids looking for a little extra money.
Yeah, I will do. And I thought that maybe getting getting out on social media, there's probably people that aren't working that will come in and earn a few bucks. You know, I don't know, but, I've got to get them in. I have to.
If we can't get volunteers, do we have opportunities to go to a temp agency?
Oh, I'm hoping for volunteers. I mean, we can, but you're going to pay the big bucks on a temp agency.
No, I understand, but I mean, you need help.
I know. Well, we'll have to. If we can't get the help, we'll have to. The only advantage of all of this is the state has said that we do not have, for the elections, we do not have to have checkout people. Just check in. Just to check the people in, but I've got to have somebody up where the ballot boxes are in case it jams, something jams or that happens, so.
And sorry if I'm backtracking here, but for the elections that are going to get the mail-in ballot, does that include the upcoming special election?
Yes.
Local? Okay.
Yes, the town election, yes, the special town, yes, it does. So if we've got, let's just say we have 3,000 mail-in cards that want for all elections this year, then we have to mail out 3,000 special election ballots.
Okay.
All right.
And does that extend into the spring elections as well? I don't know what
No, just for the balance of 2020. Okay. All right.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Okay, that's it, I think.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Have a great night.
You too, thank you.
Moving on, item number 3 under new business, fall town meeting timeline. That is on page 20 of our packets. Please keep track. And Mr. Yunus.
Believe it or not, it's that time already. We just had the last year's spring town meeting, but the fall town meeting needs to be scheduled, and so it's back to making that decision on where you want to have the meeting, but outside or inside, and what. And it should be, that timeline shows on Monday, October 19th. So somewhere either side of that, as close to that date as possible. That would the assessor's time to establish all the new growth, and then once we have the town meeting, it gives us time to set the tax rate.
Did we get the costs of what the town meeting was, the last meeting outside was?
All we had to spend money on was the speaker system. So I think it was around $4,000.
I'm sorry, Mike, what did you say, 4,000?
4,000.
It was executed great, I thought.
Perfect, as it could be, other than baking on the beach.
Not all of us were dressed like it was winter time, Jack.
Jen's checking for the bill right now.
All right, let's start discussion. I know according to this, we need to vote to open the town meeting tonight. We'll start with that, end with that. We need to set the date as we open it, or can we leave that just open it?
You can open the town meeting, but should set the date too.
Okay, so let's discuss first.
Yep.
All right. Where do we feel? 10:19.
Well, if that's a Monday, I would say let's look at a Saturday around it. I mean, I don't think we're going to be in any position to have something indoors at 7 p.m.
So make it the 17th.
17th in the morning. I assume that they will not be having football games this fall.
Yeah, we'll have to confirm that with the schools. So tentatively, that could be the date.
And it sounds like the feeling is outdoors again.
Yeah, I think so.
Excuse me, what date is that? Are you talking about?
Saturday.
17th.
October 17th.
October 17th. There's going to be, that's a Saturday, there'll be early voting that morning. So I don't know if you want to take that into consideration at all. That's an early voting day.
In October?
Yeah. That's when the presidential early voting starts.
So the only way out of it is to go back to the 10th.
And that's Columbus Day weekends, so we could run into issues with people.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we do the 24th?
Because that's early voting still.
Early voting still?
Still?
Yeah, that's 2 straight weeks.
Well,
There's nothing to prevent us from having town meeting on early voting day, right?
No,
right.
I mean, I just thought I'd throw that in.
No, I think it's a good point, Lucia. Can we would be able to tweak the hours, right, or extend the hours on the day for early voting if we had them both?
What time would you have the town meeting?
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock. All right, so.
Oh, you're saying you'd have to have people at the town meeting.
Right.
And have people.
So if we have to have early voting on that Saturday morning. So if you have both early voting in the morning and town meeting, is that gonna? I mean, people come and vote and then go to town meeting. I don't know.
We might be better off having the town meeting like at noon. Then she could have the early voting from 7 to 11 and give her 11 to 12 to move her things over to the town meeting.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll give you a lunch break in there to do both locations.
So you better make it 1 then.
So, Lucia, what are the expected hours for Saturday early voting?
I was going to do 8 to 12. Saturday and Sunday. Or 8:30 to 12:30. How long? This is going to be a long town meeting, isn't it? Is this going to be with all the zoning changes?
No, we're hoping that zoning changes go before then. Oh, let me rephrase that. I'm hoping zoning changes go before then.
Yeah, we're going to do that one earlier. Some other time you're having early voting.
Right, probably. So you might want to stay on the line. So time-wise, okay, so the 17th early voting, 24th early voting, the 10th is holiday weekend?
You want to hold it Saturday early voting at the town meeting? They can come in and vote first and then vote.
At pre-rec?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking of your staff and limited resources, and I mean, I certainly in October don't have a problem doing a later meeting, but
if you want to go do town meeting, go ahead and do town meeting. I'll go to town meeting, but if I have to get called back to the office, then I'm going to have to leave. If there's any issues, I'm going to have to leave and get to town hall.
My personal preference would be to not have these overlap. Does the early voting need to be consistently the same time week?
No, we can change if you want to change the hours for the Saturday and Sunday. Change the hours for the Saturday and Sunday. I just would have preferred them in the morning because there's going to be a lot of work after. But if you want to change, we'll change them.
I think Jack was saying that maybe on that one Saturday, it could be different than the other Saturday. I'm not sure. But
I'll do that. I can do that. I'll do that. What time do you want me to do it? I mean, shall I go 12 to 4?
6 in the morning till 10. I'm kidding.
6 to 10?
My thought process, guys, would be the early voting is a fixed unit of time. We know that that's a 4-hour block plus setup and breakdown. Town meeting could be an hour, it could be 7 hours. So I would personally, I would suggest keeping early voting to the morning whether it's 7 to 11 or 8 to 12, and then staggering the town meeting until a bit later, whether it's 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. But we also need to be mindful that I don't know when the clocks change. So the sun's going to be down earlier. I don't think it's going to be quite 4:30, but you know, by 5, it's going to be getting dusky.
Well, I don't think we would need to go that late, would we? I mean, I hope not.
I don't think that happens till November anyways, Jen. Let me look back.
I was actually just Googling too what the weather is like in October.
Could be nice, can't it?
It typically is. I mean, I can only remember that one year where we had those storms that came through, and then, you know, people lost power for like 2 weeks. Because remember towns had to cancel Halloween?
Yeah, we had snow for the parade.
Yes.
11, 2011.
So October, the typical high is 62. That's the average. September is 74.
Daylight savings ends on the 1st.
So that's not an issue. All right. I propose we do town meeting 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 17th of October, with a rain date of the 24th.
That'll also be early voting. Okay.
But we'll do the town meeting after the voting.
Okay. So do you want me to go 8 to 12 on early voting?
Could you do 7 to 11 by chance?
You sure can.
And then if we did 1 o'clock, that would give you some time to, regroup, get lunch, breathe.
Yeah.
That's the important thing to understand is how much time you're going to need to.
Don't worry about me. I'll make it work.
No, we're going to worry about you and your team.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Well, it went so seamless the last time, Lucius, so everyone's expectations are going to be good.
Say again, Jack?
Everything went so seamlessly the last town meeting that everyone's expectations are going to be the same. So.
All us town clerks are all feeling that the state is setting us all up for failure. There's just so much, I mean, it'll get done. It's going to get done. If I have to sleep at town hall, it's going to get done. But, hey, but no, it's fine. I'll be fine. Thank you. Thank you for your concern.
Other thoughts or considerations from the board?
You don't let Lucia sleep at town hall.
I'm close enough, Lucia. You can always stay here.
I'll sleep in the basement. It'll be nicely painted.
Right.
Including Lucia's sleeping arrangements, which is
other than that, no.
So.
Okay, so I'll do the 7 to 11. All right.
Okay, so Jack, I'll motion that we hold our fall town meeting on October 17th at 1 p.m. at Norton High School to be outside with a rain date of Saturday, October 24th, also at 1 p.m. Same location and outside.
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
2 vote yes. Point of clarification, Mr. Units, does that constitute opening the town meeting warrant, or do we actually have to put language in there to open it? You're
muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just amend that motion to include that you've opened the town meeting and it will be held on the 17th.
Okay.
So amended that we will open the town meeting and town meeting to be held on the 17th at 1 p.m. Mike, with the rain date, does that pose any issues in timing? With the rain date of the 24th?
No.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it makes it tighter on the other end, setting the tax rate, but nothing.
Okay.
Yep. Great. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds, so we're doubly good. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I too vote yes. That carries. Great, thank you. Anything else on town meeting, Mike?
Nope, it's fine. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to everyone's next favorite topic, discussion on the removal of the water dispenser by the Water Sewer Commission.
Do you want to give Mike, do you want to give an update on that?
Yep. So I did speak with the chairman of the Water and Sewer Commission yesterday, and he told me that they are working with the company that they leased the machine from to reduce the rent, and also that they'll keep the machine there for at least another 4 months and are willing to work on a safe way to have the machine open.
Chairman?
Yes, please.
I think that's good news. That's good to hear that the Water Commission is extending this and working to open it. I was very disappointed in their meeting, their first decision during their meeting to remove the machine out of because of safety and not willing to work to try to figure out a way to open it. But I'm excited by this news, and we'll see where it goes from there. So I'll leave it at that.
I share your deep frustrations with that decision. It was a complete 180 from the discussion that we had the week previous, where they had agreed to work with you on an SOP. They're not. It feels like there was a bit of a blindside there to have it yanked out. And like you, I'm excited that they are considering moving it on. I would like a commitment for longer than 4 months, personally. I think it would be at least until the water treatment system is fully online and the water situations have been resolved.
An informal polling on this, it's as we reach out and through social media, so it's a very informal poll. Well over 200 people were showing concerns and frustrations with their decisions. So I would encourage the Water and Sewer Commission to really listen to the residents. I'm excited that the water treatment facility is doing better. I mean, I don't think anyone can argue that, and I think we're very excited as a town that we're moving in the right direction. But I don't think that they've earned the right the confidence and trust of the residents to just discontinue the use of that water machine just yet.
Understood. And to that point, I know there's been a lot of discussion on social media. Historically, that doesn't really translate to much real life action, but I would like to say if anyone has strong feelings about the water unit being taken offline and would like to make their feelings known, the commissioners have asked for residents to call them and let their feelings be heard. 508-285-0280 is the number. So 508-285-0280. You would like to make your voice heard on bringing the water dispenser back. Anything else on that, Mr. Units?
Just at least for now, that commitment to 4 months will at least get us past the next flushing that's being done. So we'll see how that works on the system.
Hey, Mike, are we gonna need to move that thing a little bit to accommodate people coming into the basement?
I don't think so. I think that there's still room to get around that.
Okay. Handicap accessible room?
Yes.
So, Mike, question from the chat here. I believe Ms. Harrington has called. The water department has not received a call back. Should residents expect a call back, or is this an information gathering only?
Has called on the water machine?
Yes.
Okay. I would think it should leave a message. They should leave a message and at least get their point
so they can gather the information on the support for the machine.
Okay. Is there a email that they could use as well? Just thinking in terms of documentation, they can send that way. Is Frank the best person, or is it an admin there? Okay. Do you have Frank's email that we can give out?
It's ffournier@nortonmaus.com.
Great. FOURNIER@NortonMAUS.com. So I just put that in the chat for anyone who is looking for. Great. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Michael. I know this has become a personal passion project for you, so thanks for running this together.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Zach, yes.
Question, we have, on the water machine, I guess certain areas of the town have old pipes and they're still getting brown water from what I understand, and that's why people are upset. They want the water machine to stay. Is that a fair statement?
That's, I think, close enough to the truth, yes.
So we have a state-of-the-art treatment plant that the town folks built and paid for. Why couldn't we just run a line and set up a station, a simple copper line from that treatment plant to the street where at no cost of renting this thing, that somebody can go fill up jugs directly from the treatment plant without it going into the lines?
I don't think any of us are qualified to answer. That's a great question. I will say that the initial reasoning for taking the machine away was not to do with cost. It was about the safety of the usage, which is why Michael agreed to help work on a safe access SOP. The cost is something that came up at the last meeting unexpectedly. So, Mike, perhaps that's something that you can talk with Frank and the commissioners about, if they'd be willing to relocate the machine there.
Well, you wouldn't need a machine if it's coming right out of the treatment plant. It's already filtered.
I think it's a bigger issue. I think it has more to do with, I think it has to do more of a safety issue. So we're standard, it isn't the idea of the machines there, it's they wanted to come up with, they're really concerned about some of the safeties. That's what they've told me. So I don't want to necessarily, Zach, I don't want to recreate the wheel. I want to kind of try to figure the best possible way to get the machine reopened as soon as possible. That's my personal belief. I'm open for this.
I'm talking more longer term, after the 4 months, somewhere down the road.
I think to Jack's point, they don't believe from their last meeting's comments, and I'm not misquoting this, they're not getting phone calls. But we've all been witness to it, and we've all heard from comments, people are still getting brown water. So it's so important that the minute you get brown water, you're calling the water department and letting them know, because they don't see it as an issue.
But I think the idea that having a tap outside the filtration plant would do away with the need for a filter or a water machine at the town hall. I know, again, I'll go with ancient history. Years ago, there used to be a tap on the fire hydrant at the end of John Scott Boulevard at the corner of 140. And there was also one on 123 at the Attleboro line, where people from Attleboro and Taunton would come to get Norton water out of the fire hydrants. And people would be lined up just getting water there, because at that time, we didn't have the iron and manganese problem we have now. And the water was like spring water coming out of the taps.
Very good. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the comments and the idea. I think we're good there. Item number 5, discussion on COVID-19 temporary protocols for public meetings. Units, Renee?
I didn't think that, did I ask for this to be on? Oh, sorry. That was like 2 weeks ago, right? I think this was just a reminder to everyone that the temporary protocols are still in place, that all meetings should be held virtually across the town. And I think, with the current situation, we certainly don't want to, there are many things that we are doing in the town, like even with the graduation going on and some sports kicking back up. I don't think that we need to change those protocols at this time. I think we've proven, multiple boards and committees have proven the effectiveness of the virtual and remote meetings. And I think Dr. Beata stated it today, and we've certainly seen it. We've had more participation from folks in town on pretty much every call that I've been on, from the select board to the EDC, and certainly for this one, when we were sitting in the room at town hall, we had pretty much us, and then anybody who was going to speak, and we didn't really have participation from others. So I think with the current environment, with the pandemic, the fact that we don't have a vaccine, a good treatment, that we should stay as is. And Mike, I think I asked, if we could just send a reminder out to the boards and committees again, with the protocols in place, just as a gentle reminder.
We can do that. And also, I just wanted to emphasize, I know we've been in this for like 5 months. I just hope, everyone's doing a great job, just reaching out to the public to just keep, steady, to keep your mind, if it's just that one lapse you'll make, you feel too comfortable and have a big family party or something. And I know it's tough, but hopefully, as Renee was saying, a vaccine will get developed, but until then, just be cautious, wear the mask, keep hand sanitizer with you, and stay away from big gatherings. And hopefully, I know in Brockton they're starting to see the numbers creep up a little bit again this week, so we just don't want that to come back here.
Mike, that's a great point. Thank you for that reminder. And it came up on the forum last night that the school committee and Dr. Beata held, just in respect to, are they monitoring positive cases in town, and will that impact their decision? I did provide on their chat session the link to the Board of Health site where the number of cases and active cases are posted. Do we have any information that we could leverage to show trending that we could make available? So over time, like I think Chris was reporting the numbers maybe weekly. I can't remember, but is there a way maybe we can look at that? So from our perspective, because I think it'll help inform us about a change in posture for the fall town meeting, if we start to see the numbers rising and rising exponentially.
Yeah, I'll talk to Donna Farmer.
Okay.
Great job. And she also does the contact tracing. And I know we've been talking, Donna has been also with the other towns. I talked to the town administrator from Easton, looking if somehow we can share resources, because I'm not sure what Wheaton's going to do and what Stonehill's going to do in Easton. So we have these students coming back. We want to be ready if there's someone tests positive to do contact tracing. So we'll be looking to get support from the state on it.
That's great. Thank you. I hope that we don't see a significant rise, but you're right. So many reopening efforts are now paused or being pushed back just because of that. And, it's tough. And I think many people have said it in different forums, with it being summertime and you're out and about and you kind of don't think about the fact that you should be putting on a mask, especially when you can't social distance, but it's very important to do that. So were there any questions on just on temporary protocols? I know, Michael, I think you've seen these as, part of your role on the EDC, yeah. But from a board perspective, I don't think that you were involved in, or you weren't involved in.
I was not. I started through the EDC.
Okay.
I've seen your praises. We have to keep this. We have to stay vigilant.
Yeah, and Charlene was kind enough to get the temporary protocols in multiple places on the town website too. so we can direct folks there if they have any questions.
Great.
And I think too, I know the Norton Media Center is kind of in the background here, but I think that they have been very instrumental in making this a success. And I think I actually just saw the school committee meeting go up for tonight. So if that was the case, it's pretty fast. But it's been very helpful. They've been great to send them the recording links, and they get those things up on YouTube and available for the public. So they've certainly helped us to make this process somewhat seamless, and we thank them.
Right. That's a great point, Renee. What would we think if can we ask Mr. Units to draft a letter on behalf of the town boards through the Norton Media Center, thanking them for helping us through this time and making that switch quite seamless?
I think that'd be great. Mike, is that something you can do?
Yep. That's fine.
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, I got a comment.
Yes, Peter.
That's right. I'm doing a good job washing my hands, staying visit, and I'm resuming my day trip to Taunton, Andover, Mansfield, Park, and I'm staying vigilant, and everybody should be there to win. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine and treatment soon, right?
Right on. And every time I see your post, Peter, and you're out and about, you have your mask on, so you are leading by example. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Very good.
Everybody should be like me.
We should all be so lucky, Peter. Okay, moving on. Vote to authorize the town manager to sign the memorandum of agreement with the Mansfield Airport Commission. So, Mike, what's this all about then?
So the Airport Commission, they have to do some tree clearing on the runway approach, and so they're looking for permission to do some tree clearing on Cobb Street in North Washington. I did have Keith Silva look at that. He didn't have any issues with it. And I know also they're making some agreements with residents in the same area to cut trees on their property.
So this agreement would just be for trees on town land?
On the public way, yep.
Any discussion on this?
Mike, is any of this, and I'm about to ask a question that you're going to cringe when I ask it. Have you, any of this conservation lands?
No, this is just on the public ways.
All right, fair enough. And there's, and none of it's just our land. Okay, perfect.
Mike, do we know how much how much area this impacts? And I only ask because when they did this right at the airport along the bike path there, it was incredibly different and dramatic and shocking to people at how much they actually took down, which I was surprised because the trees had been there for so long. I didn't realize that they needed that much space, but do you have any indication of that before we just say, yes, go ahead and do it?
So they're cutting anything that's within 10 feet of the approach area, and on the diagram, they put out the approach area, so you can see where the approach area goes across Washington, or it goes across Cobb Street. In those areas, that's where they'd have to do the clearing.
So it's just those two locations as shown on that?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're not vista pruning, they're clearing.
Yes.
So it looks pretty significant. Is that somebody's, let me share my screen here. Is that somebody's property on the one on the bottom right on Cobb Street?
No, that's at the bend on Cobb Street.
It looks like it abuts their property though, right?
This, right here. Yeah, that's a driveway, isn't it?
Right, and the red is Cobb Street. You just can't see it because it's too many trees.
But we're sure this is not on somebody's personal property.
No, actually, I saw a couple of the agreements, people that's on personal property. One was for 30,000 and one was for 50,000, so.
I wish somebody would have paid me to take down my trees.
I said the same thing.
How much are they paying us to take down our trees?
Nothing.
Huh.
Okay.
Like to make a motion to approve, the town manager to sign a letter of understanding with the town of Mansfield's Airport Commission or Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, go to vote. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Thank you very much. Old business, discussion on potential special town meeting.
Let's do it. Let's have the special town meeting for the zoning articles. Mike, thank you for following up on that. I don't know if you guys remember this, it came out a couple weeks ago. Closed Thursday, November 26th to have a town meeting to have these articles heard. I know we talked last meeting about doing this sometime in August. I did confirm with Walter that the Saturdays around the time that he was going to take vacation were not an issue. So maybe if we can take a look at some dates. And then, Mike, I don't know if you have, is Lucia still on? Or did she drop already? I don't know if you have any indication about things that would conflict. So she said early voting, the first one that she mentioned was starting on Saturday, August 22nd. So if timing were right, I would say that we try to do it the weekend, at least the weekend before. Is there a comment? Which would be Saturday, August 15th.
Yep.
Timing wise, I don't know if, Mike, would we have time? We wouldn't have time to vote on the 8th, right?
No. The 15th work out.
Okay. So thoughts?
Saturday, August 15th. Should we check with Paul on the planning board before agreeing to a date, or agree to one and that's when we're holding it?
We can set the date, and if it's a problem with someone else, we can always change. But I'd like to vote on it and at least get things moving.
Yeah, I know I asked if we could reach out to Paul, Walter, and Bill Rotundi on thoughts on timing. Mike, were you able to do that?
I have not. And what were you saying about, what date did you say again? The 15th?
Saturday, August 15th.
And what was wrong with the 22nd? Did you have a problem?
That's the early voting starts. Lucia said for the primary Saturday, August 22nd to Friday, August 28th.
What time do you want to do? 9 o'clock again?
Yes.
I'd say 8 or 9 o'clock because it's going to be hot.
Okay.
So that begs the question too, right? About a tent.
I'm just looking at I'm just trying to, so if you set the town meeting tonight, get it to the newspaper, then the warrant will close 5 business days. August 4th.
5 business days is August 4th?
That was August 15th we were doing the meeting.
No, I'm saying if you set it tonight, by the time the newspaper published it, it would be
okay.
July 28th. And so 5 business days would be August 4th, it would close. And then you'd have to post the warrant 14 days for the town meeting. So
that wouldn't give us enough time. I mean, we can't have this at noon in August. I googled the average temperature in August, and it's 81.
Could we have it on a weekday night?
I'd say with August and Triple E and West Nile already out there, I would say no.
What about Saturday, September 12th? That avoids all early voting and Labor Day weekend. I realize that it's almost up onto later than you were thinking, but.
Mr. Chairman, that's the special option.
Son of a gun. All right.
I'm not sure why I know that.
So, Mike, is there any way to get that to the paper faster?
No, because they don't publish it that quick. It's their timeline. So tomorrow is the 24th. We send it to them. They won't publish it until the 28th.
And if we're dead set on holding it outside, then.
Why is it 5 business days instead of 5 calendar days?
That's just what the charter was reading.
Because I thought the charter always referenced days and not, and that meant calendar days, not business days, but it reads specific to business days.
That's what I wrote down. So I don't have the charter in front of me.
Do we have a resident charter expert online by any chance?
She seems to be.
Maybe one that might be on the opposite side of that street that we see in the video.
I don't know. Mr. Parker, is your better half around to answer that question?
Most certainly is. Before she does that, though, did I understand correctly that the early voting ends on the 28th? Does that mean the 29th of August would be an option?
I wrote down Saturday, August 22nd, Friday, August 28th, yeah.
So that would be good. August 29th, perfect.
Can we ask our resident?
I see her furiously looking things up.
Okay.
She hasn't got that memorized yet?
90% of it.
Because I would say if we could do it 2 weeks earlier, I would be much happier. And I think, specifically because when we talk about the particular zoning article around the marijuana bylaw, we are closing the R5 process, I believe, on the 23rd of August. And so I know it's only a week difference from that date, but it would be nice to know whether or not potential applicants are looking at places that have been approved to be within the zoning district or not.
What was the specific question in the charter?
If it mentioned for the special town meeting that the warrant had to be open for 5 days or 5 business days. Is that correct, Mike?
Correct.
So I think the answer to that depends on if it counts Tuesday the 28th as day 1 or if it's the following day. So, Mike, if it's published on the Tuesday the 28th, that's day 1, correct?
Correct.
So day 5 would then be Saturday, August 1st, which would work if that holds up.
The 4th, August 4th.
Well, that's if it's business days. If as Renee's hoping, if it's calendar days, then it would be Saturday the 1st, which 2 weeks would put us at the 15th.
So we would close the warrant and post it, well, it's a Saturday though. I mean, again, this, aside from somebody putting in a petition, right, we already have the warrant articles written. So I think from a fast turnaround, that would be somewhat easy.
But if it is work days, it's in there to protect the rights of somebody to put a petition in. Even though we want to go with what we've already got, that would be the only reason they might put work days instead of calendar days.
So
I might have this listed too.
Yeah, Mrs. Parker has said it's in the bylaw, not the charter, so she's looking at that piece now. But if Saturday, August 29th is a viable option, it seems to miss the special election and the early voting. I think that is a good second place if the 15th doesn't work.
Although, I think that's the day I'm supposed to be on a plane, which only means I'll be in a car.
Excellent. I don't know if we have remote participation for town meeting, but we can live tweet you updates if you like.
Well, who would answer the questions? I mean, I guess I could, anybody on the EDC could, but kind of seems like a cop-out.
Well, we can all attest to the fact that you were not in favor of that date.
No, I think if we did it early enough, it would be fine. Again, I'm not, I have it on my calendar that we're heading to Florida on a flight, but that's obviously not happening right now. So it will be in a car heading north.
All right. Do we want to go with the 29th? Do we want to wait for?
I'd like to wait to see, and if that date works. I mean, I'd prefer to have it again earlier, only because of the RFI process, and then it gives us extra time to have a more informed review process to make recommendations to the board in respect to the retail establishments.
Renee, can you just clarify? I mean, I understand the importance of the zoning issues and all that, but waiting a month, you think it's just because of the closing of the RFI and just the whole process? Is that your thought process of why you want to remove it? Do a special meeting versus just waiting till October?
Well, again, that's almost 2 months. But yeah, it's to the fact that we've proven that we can have a successful town meeting, and given the fact that both of the major warrant articles are economic, in this environment, I think it is more advantageous for us to move forward now, because the other thing that we don't know in October, they're expecting that there's a potential increase or a second wave come September, October timeframe. So our October town meeting can be postponed or delayed like our initial town meeting was. Now we're just a couple weeks out and we know the numbers right now look good. We can do it successfully. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. That's really why, Michael.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm reading right now, the Board of Selectmen shall include in the warrant for such special town meeting, subject matter of all petitions which are received at its office on or before the office closes for business in the afternoon of the 5th business day following such publication.
Okay. Very good. So sounds like the 15th is not going to work. So we're on to the 29th. Let's pick a time. We want to do 8, 9. I know we don't.
9 o'clock in the morning. That way, gives them an hour to check people in. Starting at 8.
Rain date. Do we want to do that, or just go for gusto?
Without having Lucia on the line to know what the other dates are for the ballots, I would just say let's do one.
Yeah, and we can always put a rain date at a later time, but I'd like to get things rolling so we don't hit another roadblock.
Very good. Chair would entertain a motion to set a special town meeting for Saturday, August 29th, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Norton High School, to be held outdoors on the football field.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, move to the vote. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I too vote yes. There we go. We had a special meeting.
Mike, can you reach out, or can somebody reach out and get some cost estimates for a tent?
Okay.
So again, I don't know if you guys remember what the temperature was when we had the last meeting, but man, did it get hot before 10, and I imagine that this is not going to be a 1 hour town meeting. So for those of us sitting in the bleachers, and then the others, you know, obviously if we can provide some shade.
That, or I would suggest people bring like umbrellas, sun umbrellas or something like that.
Sitting in the peanut gallery as we were, I did notice a few participants of the public getting a little wobbly standing up waiting for the microphone. So I definitely think extra caution needs to be taken with the heat. So whether it's I think looking at a tent makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too, we should talk to the town moderator as well, to be like, I know it was explained in the beginning, everybody stays in their seats and a microphone will be brought to them, and that didn't happen, which caused many members to have to get up because a microphone was sitting directly behind them. So I think we could probably circle back with Walter too, and let's make sure that happens, because Jack, to your point, that might help, right? We won't have people standing in line, they can just raise their hands.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. People were not exactly following the directions.
Right.
And in fairness to Walter, it was his first time in that spot, and he had other things on his mind than trying to direct people to microphones.
No, which is, yeah, I mean, and, you know, it's the first time we did it outside, so we gave him a double whammy. I thought he did great. Let's see how he does on the second one.
Being mindful of my laptop battery and my personal battery. Town manager's report, update on traffic signal at North and South Worcester Streets at Route 123.
Yeah, I think I sent you the timeline on that. I was kind of surprised to see, you know, when you're working with Mass Highway, nothing seems to go really fast. But I just know a lot of people are looking forward to that traffic signal. But now it would be, their timeline has scheduled for construction to be in 2025. So it's gotten pushed out. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Is that beginning or ending, Mike?
That's beginning construction.
I was kind of hoping while I was still driving, Mike.
Yeah.
And it's expected to take like a year or 14 months?
Oh, it should. Probably at the most, yeah.
I believe looking at the Gantt chart, project completion was in late 2025. So
yeah.
So that's a 2-year jump from where it was the last day we got.
Is it 2025 when the bike path is also supposed to be done? So big give north 2025.
So, and we're paying for the engineering to get it on the tip quicker, and so it's just so frustrating, but that's the process.
Mike, is there any opportunity to look at putting in a 4-way stop in the interim so we can like improve the safety of that intersection? I know it's not going to improve traffic flow, especially during heavier times, but
yeah, I can make that suggestion. That's a state highway, so
I think
I don't think they'll put stop signs out on 123.
No, I'm pretty sure that we made that request years ago, and it was shut down.
Let's try again. Maybe there's somebody else there.
So that's the Worcester Street intersection. How about North and South Washington and the 495 lights? Are we coming close to those?
I saw they put up the digital signboards out on the highway saying construction to begin August 10th. So.
This August 10th?
Yes.
A lot of warning for 2025, Renee. August 20.
Well, I know. I mean, I'm just surprised. It's like so close, and I live so close, and I'm not driving anywhere now, so why would I see a sign?
So that's
What's
495. What about Washington Street? Is that included in that same package?
It is.
And were the takings all successfully resolved for any of the things that needed to be done for the curb cuts and all that?
Yeah, we just have one person we're working with. Everyone else is all set.
And no conflicts, Mike, with the sewer that they're putting in right now?
No, they had to get state permits on a portion of that, and they've been coordinated with the contractor that's doing the work on the highway and the engineers from VHB.
Okay, good.
Anything else on traffic lights, guys? Seeing none.
On the West Main Street sewer project, they did receive a blasting permit, and I know Deputy Chief Son has talked to the contractor, and it looks like that section of the job, they may start blasting the first week of August.
So what should the townspeople expect when we start blasting? And for how much of a distance?
You want me to answer that question, Mike?
Yeah.
So it looks like they could go up to 3 months of blasting. It might not take place every single day. They can only blast from 10 in the morning to 2. They can't hold traffic. Well, the state doesn't want them to hold traffic more than 5 minutes. But if they start holding it more than 12 minutes, then they'll shut down the job. But again, it's still, I don't know if you've been up on 123, but they're doing test borings now. So that's not completed yet, so they're not sure how much blasting they're going to have to do. But he said it could take up to 3 months.
Deputy Chief, is it your crew that does this, or is it, do they just bring you?
Okay, so there's a blasting company that's hired. There's all kinds of regulations they have to follow. We insist that they hire a detail, which they will be hiring a detail from the fire department to keep an eye on to make sure that they're following the correct process.
Okay.
And the seismographs that are set generally about 10 feet within the structures, and at the end of each day, we'll send a seismograph report to my office. And we encourage any residents, if there's any issues, to contact us immediately.
And how loud would we anticipate this to be, and how far do you think that people can hear it?
It shouldn't be too loud. I don't. And they do use blasting mats. That's one of the requirements, so there's no fly rock. And again, if there is an issue with fly rock, then we can shut the job down, make sure they're doing it correctly.
And how far are houses away from the blasting area?
Well, I know one of the houses, I think it's at by Wendell's, so that's right outside the area. It's within 250 feet, I know that.
Being really ignorant to how this works, foundations shouldn't be an issue.
So one of the things they have to do is a pre-site survey. So they've gone into all the structures and contacted all the residents and the businesses. They take pictures. So if there's any, if people call and say, geez, I got a crack in my ceiling or foundation, then we'll go and investigate it. And then we'll look at the seismograph to see how big the blast was.
Okay, perfect.
So who goes and does those initial assessments, Deputy Chief?
They hire a consultant that goes out and does that. That's already been completed. And a couple of residents want to be notified the day of the blast.
I think it would make sense if we also leverage the alert system when there is planned blasting during the day.
Yeah, actually, Mass DOT has set quite a few requirements, and those they have to within 7 days put up notification, and that should be taking place this week. And I will contact Charlene once for sure that we're going to start beginning of August.
hopefully this gets them moving a bit faster.
Yeah, it's gonna take some time.
The other issue that Betty's been working on also is South Worcester Street and John Scott Boulevard, just so we can mess up traffic a little bit more. They're doing the railroad crossings over, and they have to shut down the intersection after they pave it. So they're planning on shutting down that intersection on Friday, July 24th. And it will reopen on Saturday night, July 25th. And I know the fire department's concern was that would add quite a bit of time to that in that area of town getting to emergencies. So I know that the deputy worked with them on having details and having this trolley station open and manned.
Yes, so our response time to that southwest section of town, up to Rehoboth or up to the Taunton line, by East Hodges Street or West Hodges to the Apple line, generally anywhere from 9 to 10 minutes. And so we calculated it was going to add an additional at least 4 minutes to our response. So I contacted them and I drafted up a letter. And they've agreed to allow us to hire 3 firefighters to open up the Charlie Fire Station. The cost is approximately $6,500 for those hours, and that will actually even make our response time even better to that area, and they're picking up the full tab. As far as the John Scott Boulevard, when that is shut down, we don't see any issues as far as hiding any details for the Charlie Fire Station. And that will take place the following weekend.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you, Deputy Chief King.
They're also, they will have 2 police officers on each side of the detail, making sure that traffic doesn't go through. They work right around the clock. So they start, our detail starts tomorrow at 8 o'clock and will end 6 o'clock Saturday night. So they will work right through. I think they said they'll start tearing up the street. They'll allow one freight train to go through, and that's it. They shut down the rail.
Oh.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Deputy Chief Keenan?
Yes. Peter. Yes. Yes. I would like to make I brought up that it was the evening of Friday, July 22nd, 1955, that a kid bound bus train smashed into a small pickup truck on the Great Crossing in Norton at the South Washington Street crossing that killed a man by the name of 59-year-old Gilbert Bailey of South Worcester Street.
Well, that was 64 years ago yesterday. That's
65 years ago yesterday. 65 years ago.
2020. I keep wishing I was back in 2019.
And I recall Benny King. I recall Deputy Chief King that your father, Benton King, was a patrolman back then. Assistant. Right?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Bailey was on.
Well, thank you for adding some historical context, Peter. I appreciate it. Anything else for Town Manager Eunice?
Nope, all set, thank you.
Great. Selectmen's report and mail. Michael, anything?
No, we just, got some, it's good to hear about the water, but also the food truck in town. We got a comment from the food truck, and Building Inspector Carmichael signed off on 2 locations for fork and bibs, and they want to look at possibly having another location more towards the center of town. So hope to work with Mike and hopefully find a suitable place for them to land in the center of town somewhere.
Somewhere I can walk to from the town hall.
Is that really what we're looking for? That's our goal, Mike, is make it geographically attractive for the town manager.
I think you can walk to the town common.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And that's one of their, as they said, obviously the historical, we have to talk to the historical commission, but one of their goals is to actually have it manned, maybe have some time in the town hall.
Mike, if they were on the street, how does the historical district weigh in if they were like in the parking spaces?
They would just, they're not, as long as they're not using the park, I don't see why it would be an issue.
Right. I mean, the hope is that residents would go down, have some food, and use the park, which I want to say thank you to. I saw a crew there today doing some painting.
Yep, they've been there the last couple of days.
Yeah, it looks good. Thank you.
Renee, your time is coming. So that's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
So just to piggyback on Michael's thing, since he brought up Fort a bit of a comment, I understand that they have asked for the common to be one of the locations and it was denied. Is that because of the historical commission? Is that something that's still being worked on? I just speaking objectively, I think that would be a great location.
Thank you.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, I'll check on that. I know they just asked for suggestions. And that was kind of one that wasn't real supportive, just knowing that there may be opposition. But I'll check with them and see if they're still interested in that.
Okay, I believe they would be. So if we can follow up on that and see if we broker an agreement between the historical commission and that. I mean, that comment sits there. It's beautiful. But if no one's allowed to use it in order to historically preserve the grass that's there, it doesn't really seem like it's doing much good. All right. Thank you. Renee?
I was just going to add, now that it's my turn, that I think it's a safer option too, right, with the traffic pattern there and people having the ability to park. So I'd like to see it there. I'd like to see, actually, thinking of that whole idea, let's make that the food truck mecca. Just kidding. But it'd be nice to bring things there, like nothing happens. And granted, it's the busiest intersection and it's pretty loud, but it's summertime and we're all kind of trapped anyway. So if we could bring a little sunshine to people and some good food, I think that'd be great. Michael, thank you for following up on that and working with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, Renee?
No, I'm all set in the interest of time.
All right. Brad, anything?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I just want to, with all the bad publicity of police and stuff, I wanted to mention the letter that we get a copy of from Chief Clark commending Patrolman Sean Worrell and Dispatcher Amanda Goodwin. And he wished to recognize and commend them for their assistance they gave to a resident who had fallen on hard times. They recently received and were called to a well-being check of a resident who they found living in conditions in disrepair, including basic utilities not working. The resident has no close family and did not know where they could spend the night. They arranged to have the resident stay at the extended stay hotel and paid for the 2-night stay out of their own pockets. And he just wanted to congratulate them and thank them for the extraordinary gesture, saying that they went above and beyond to assist the resident who's been a resident for over 50 years and is a graduate of Norton High School. So he's spent his whole life here and has fallen on hard times, and they were there to help. So I just wanted to make sure we got that out there. And that's it.
Thank you, Brad.
And because apparently I like to piggyback, I will say that the police did post a follow-up, I believe yesterday, that if anyone is interested in helping this individual, because I guess a lot of people have reached out, there's two options. One, through Norton's Human Services, there is a drop box at the rear of the Senior Center on West Main Street. Monetary donations can be made to St. Vincent de Paul, attention Norton resident in need. Or two, via It Takes a Community, which is a local nonprofit and assists residents in need. And monetary donations can be made to ITAC, at 48 Harvey Street, Norton, Mass. 02766. So again, I agree, Brad, it's just a great example of the high quality of police we have in town. It's really, really great. The only thing I have is I had a resident reach out inquiring if there was any news on potential development for the vacant bank property on West Main Street. I don't believe that's the one that's owned. That was the plan for Cumberland Farms. Let's see if I can pull up the address.
Yeah, I believe it was. At least it's the only bank property I know of.
It's a nice place for a town hall.
It's kind of small.
I don't know, with it cleared right now, with all that rock and gravel or whatever it is there, it seems like a pretty big property.
Yeah, but once you put a building in there and try to fit a parking lot.
I'm all about the 3-story.
Jack, is that a question? What's happening there? Or?
Yes, I'm pulling it up here to see if there are any plans to revitalize maybe it's different, revitalize the old bank in the center of town. They understand the building is within the whole historical district. So I don't know if that's the same property that we're talking about, if there's something I'm not familiar with.
I don't think that's in the district. Sorry.
Yeah. Isn't there an old bank building right near the church that's right at the intersection of 140 and 123? Like
Norton's
really old.
Norton's is like the Norton Municipal Savings Bank there or something like that.
It's the one that they use for
Wheaton
housing students.
Okay. So if it's a Wheaton property, it doesn't seem like there's much of the time.
It's not for Wheaton Properties. I know who owns it. I don't want to say their name.
All right.
But he rents it out to Norton students.
Okay.
Wheaton students who don't stay in the dorms or anything like that, and they use it during the school year.
Very good. See, that right there was 4 minds coming together, 5 minds with Mr. Parker to solve the problem. So.
Plus the building was built in 1930, and it was a not savings one building, and then it was a Penfield Bank, and now it is a Wheaton housing complex.
There we go. Excellent. Thank you again, Peter. All right. Warrants and minutes. So Renee pinch hit for me my first week on duty, so thank you for reviewing a couple of these warrants. Do you want to do A, B, and C, Renee, and I'll do D?
I will. So I approved 2 payroll warrants, and there are 2 because the fiscal period. So first one is payroll warrant PR 20-28 for the payroll period ending June 30th, 2020. Warrant dated June 30th in the amount of $100,003.90. Additionally, the payroll warrant PR 21-02 for the week ending July 11th, 2020. Warrant dated July 16th, 2020 in the amount of $685,228.35. And then the final is an invoice warrant AP 21-03 dated July 16th, 2020 in the amount of $162,205.83.
And today I went in and signed invoice warrant AP 21-04 dated July 23, 2020 in the amount of $4,963,176.96, of which roughly $3.125 million was a payment to Bristol County Retirement Fund. So I believe that's the annual fees there. Thank you for helping out, Renee. Appreciate that.
Anytime, Jack.
All right, and lastly, we have approving the minutes. So I will be the first to say that I have not had a chance to look at any minutes after last meeting. I don't know if anyone else is ready to vote or approve.
I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at the revisions that Jen made today on March 5th, but if you have, I would be willing to motion that we approve the minutes from March 5th, 2020 as amended, and just comment to that there is an attachment that Jen will add to those meeting minutes when posted.
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on approving the minutes for March 5th, 2020 with the pending attachment as Renee mentioned? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Michael? I believe that was an abstain if I use my lip reading skills.
Sorry, that was an abstain. Thank you.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. All right, so we ticked another one off the list. All right. Next meeting, formal select board would be Thursday, August 6th at 2020. However, we are going to hold the public info session for the Town Hall Senior Center site selection piece on Wednesday, the 29th. So Mike, I don't know if proactively we should post for that in case, I know I will be on, I suspect others will be as well, just in case we have a quorum. I think we should cover our bases there.
Okay.
All right, and I believe that was 7 o'clock to be held virtually using the school's Zoom webinar system. All right. Is there any other business to come before the board? And no executive session tonight, Mike?
No.
All right. Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, go to the vote. Michael?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I too vote yes. So this ends our meeting, and I have 12% left in my battery. Aces, guys. That's great. I'm going to charge it for next time.
Thank you, Jack. Good night, Jack, Brad, Mike, Renee, Mike, Joe.
Good night, Peter. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Charlie, good night, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.